You represent Mr. Moore.
Yes, ma'am.
We're on the record in the matters of the people of the state of Michigan versus Anthony Anderson, file number 22-00442 versus Xavier Church, file number 22-00445 versus Marion Dunwoody Moore, file number 22-00446, and Dalton Frank Moore, file number 22-00447. Council appearances.
Good morning, Your Honor. Andrea Lacey appearing on behalf of the people.
Eric Small for Anthony Anderson, please see to my right.
Please support David Carter Jr. on behalf of Mr. Alex Church, who is president and sitting in the jury box.
Good morning, Your Honor. John Abbott with the England County Public Defender's Office. I represent Dalton Moore. He's appeared on Zoom today.
Morning, Your Honor. Ronald Berry, appearing on behalf of Marion Hearing.
There's that Mr. Moore might be sick. Is that what's going on?
Yes, Your Honor. He phoned our office yesterday and said that he'd been exposed to somebody with COVID. And I spoke with his son this morning and he confirmed that his father's exposed to COVID. And that's apparently why he's on Zoom this morning. I haven't had a chance to talk to him today yet.
Okay, are we ready to proceed on our exam?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes,
So he's waiving his appearance in the court.
I guess I should ask him, Your Honor, before we I can answer that question.
Thank you. He would need to unmute himself first, then you can ask him. Mr. Moore, can you unmute?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Moore, they're intending to conduct this hearing with you on Zoom. Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
You have a right to confront the witnesses against you. You have a right to be in person at a preliminary exam. Are you waiving that right?
No, I would like to confront my witness for sure. So yeah, let's not do this right now. Because I do need to confront my witness against me.
Well, we're going to proceed today as we have a courtroom full of people, as well as the witnesses here. This has been reset multiple times. And so he could have put on an N95 if that was what he wanted to do. He chose not to be here. So you can call your first witness.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you, Your Honor. For the first witness, people called to the stand, Yusuf Crowley.
Your Honor, I don't know how many witnesses the prosecutor intends to call, but I would ask first the question. of the witnesses if there's one.
Thank you. And are you all, I know you all in the jury box, but is there anyone sitting at the table?
Where Mr. Moore sat last time.
Oh, okay, someone can sit at the table. Mr. Berry?
I was deferring to Mr. Abbott.
Because I'm old.
Well, he doesn't have a client.
That is indeed accurate.
His client's not in the building, so there's 2 seats there, so it's more efficient if 2 people sit there. Ooh. Okay.
Go ahead. Raise your right hand. Very good.
You solemnly swear or affirm the testimony you're going to give us the truth and the whole truth under the penalty of perjury.
Yes.
Thank you. You can have a seat. I don't know if I addressed on the record, I will be granting your sequestration order.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, so sir, I'm going to give you a couple of rules, but as to the sequestration order, there's an order that you're not to speak or about any portions of your testimony with any other witnesses. Okay, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, the other rules that you have here is that I have a court reporter sitting behind you. So all your responses must be verbal so that she can document that into the written record, okay?
Yes.
If you have a question that requires a yes or no, head nods or shakes are not sufficient. Neither are uhs and ahs. You'll hear us ask you, is that a yes or a no? So try to remember to respond with yes or no. If there is a objection by any of the attorneys, you would stop speaking and stop giving whatever answer you were giving. I will make a ruling on the objection and then I'll advise you as to whether or not you can respond to that. Okay, sir? Okay, state your first and last name, and then I want you to spell both of them.
Yusuf Kawi, first name Yusuf, spelled Y-U-S-U-F. Last name Kawi, spelled Q-A-W-E-E.
Okay, you can proceed, Council.
Thank you. Mr. Cowley, I'm gonna take you back to December 29th of 2021. Do you remember that date?
I do.
On that date, were you present at 317 Denver Street in the city of Lansing in Ingham County?
Yes,
What's located at that address?
that's my home.
Okay, and did something happen that day that brings you to court?
Yes.
And what was that?
I was assaulted and,
Objection
basically,
calls for legal analysis for in conclusion.
Do you want to respond to the objection?
Your Honor, I don't think it calls for legal conclusion. I think assault and what it consists of is general knowledge at this point.
Okay. You're objecting to his response using the term assault?
He's describing he's giving us a legal conclusion of what he thought happened. It's illegal.
But I'm wondering, what do you believe is triggering that? The fact that he's terming it as an assault? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, he can describe what he saw, heard, what someone did.
Okay. No. I don't believe that calls for legal conclusion. I understand your argument. Maybe you can flesh out what he means by assault.
Of course. Mr. Cowley, can you explain to the court what you mean by assault?
yes, on that day, I was physically attacked by Dalton Moore. Marion something or other, I don't know the guy's last name, Alex, and a kid named Anthony.
Okay, and I'm gonna, well, since we got the names out, I'm gonna have you identify them if you can. Are the people that you identified by name present in the courtroom and or on the TV today?
Yes,
Can you please point to each person? Give us the name as you know it and describe something that they're wearing for the court.
Dalton is on the screen. Marion or Mashan, or whatever his name is, he's right there.
Okay.
That is Alex right there. And that is Anthony right there.
Okay. Can you describe something that either of them are wearing, just so we can make sure we have each one
What they're wearing and what they were wearing.
wearing today?
Oh, wait. Today, he's in a white t-shirt, apparently that is Dalton Moore. Marianne, he's in a black hoodie with green something on it. Alex is in the red and black, it's like a jumpsuit or a shirt or sweatshirt, jacket.
Okay.
And Anthony is in a black sweatshirt, black jacket with a gray sweatshirt with right hand.
Thank you, Your Honor. Please let the record reflect that Mr. Cowie has identified all four of the defendants in this matter.
No objection for exam purposes. No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Identification is noted.
Thank you. Now, you said that they attacked you. Was there something else that happened that day as well?
Yes, my daughter, let this all off of my daughter receiving a threatening text message, which we assume.
Objection calls for speculation, lack of foundation about what his daughter received and what it contained.
Well, I can get through all of those.
It depends. It's a text message. You might have read it himself.
Now,
We can't call, I'm going to overrule the objection as the hearsay at this time because he hasn't provided further information. You're saying it calls for,
Lack of foundation and speculation at this point.
okay, the question was,
what else happened that day? And he said that he indicated that his daughter had received a message.
I don't know, how's that lack foundation as to what happened that day?
How would he know his daughter received a text message?
Okay, well, that could have probably been the first question. I mean, the next question. I think the first question would need to be what else happened. So I'm going to overrule the objection and allow her to follow up with that.
Mr. Cowie, the text message that your daughter received, did you see it?
Yes,
Okay. And do you remember what it said?
not off the top of my head, I just distinctly remember there were several threatening phrases in it directed at my daughter and
Okay. And do you remember seeing who that text message was?
I remember seeing the face in it, yes,
Okay. And do you know who that person was based on the picture that you saw?
yes,
And who was that?
Anthony.
Okay. And you saw the text message, correct?
Yes, I read it.
And that text message was also provided to the police. Is that also correct? Okay. And if you saw it again, you would be able to recognize. Is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. Your Honor, I'm gonna show what's been marked as people's proposed exhibits 1 and 2 to defense counsel.
Your Honor, I'm gonna renew my objection for lack of foundation. We need his daughter in here to tie this up. And second, this text message is not relevant to this case. Mr. Quadri was the victim in this case. The text message is directed to the daughter, Maya. She's not a victim in this case. This text
Okay.
message is not relevant.
Did you want to respond?
Text message is absolutely relevant, Your Honor. Mr. Crowley took some action this day based on this text message after he actually physically saw it. He already indicated to the court that he knows who sent it based on the picture that he saw associated with that text message. So I don't know how Mr. Kamal wants to say it's not relevant. It's absolutely relevant.
As to the relevance, I think this is part of her foundation as to why the incident occurred. So I'm gonna overrule the relevance. The other objection you had was as to foundation because the daughter is not here to testify about her receiving the text message. I think that he's testified that he read the text messages from himself. So I'm going to overrule that objection because he did read it himself. She can question about, and he's where or how he got access to the phone or to the message. But
I can ask him that. As well.
did you have an objection as well?
I'd like to chime in a little bit. Are you offering that right now? Because I'd like the board there regarding this so-called picture that we saw.
Okay, I'll allow you to voir dire. I'm gonna have her ask her further foundational question about the text message, and then you can voir dire before she follows up with showing him any exit.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, how did you observe this text message?
My daughter had presented it to me because she was kind of disturbed by what she had read herself.
Okay, so you were concerned for her at that point?
Yes,
And you read it,
yes,
and you remember what it said?
yes.
Your Honor, may I approach a witness?
Well, there was a request of voir dire.
Oh, sorry.
All right. Sir, you said that your daughter showed you this message?
Yeah, she came to me and was like, Dad, as we were talking, because she looked like she was upset about something, and I'm trying to get it out of her. And she said this.
Okay, so this is a text message that she received on her phone.
Yes,
And she showed it to you.
yes.
You don't have any idea where it came from except it's on her phone.
I have an idea because of the text of how it was sent, but
Okay.
exactly how it got in her phone, I cannot say because I don't own the phone.
Thank you. I would object on foundation requirements here. There's no telling where this text message came from without his daughter.
Okay, and I think the testimony previously that he saw a picture.
Yeah.
I saw the text message within her phone sent as, how you typically receive a text. I believe it was a Snapchat that was sent to.
Okay,
And
when you say a picture, what do you mean that the text message included a picture?
No,
Or
no,
was
it's
it a
just
picture
the
from the
text
sender?
message, like, I'm assuming what they're speaking on is the image of the text, which they're consuming as a picture, but other than that, there are no other pictures.
Not
other than
following.
the text.
So Your Honor, if I may, it's a Facebook message actually, and it includes the person's profile picture as well.
Well, now she's testifying to
Right.
what that exhibit is.
Right.
And I think we need
Well,
the daughter.
yeah, I agree. I think the daughter does need to testify as to how she received that.
Your Honor,
You're talking about a picture within a text?
It is a picture associated with it, yes. And Mr. Colley already indicated that he recognizes that photo and recognizes it as a specific person.
He recognizes the person that he identified as Anthony.
Yeah,
Is-
in the photo associated with this.
But the
text.
issue is how did how did this message get to the device or to the phone? Where did it come from?
I mean,
And I don't know that he can testify about that.
I guess I'm confused as to what it is, because that sounds more of like a technical question as opposed to somebody saying, I received a text message on my phone.
Well, I think the question is, where did it come from? Is it a text message? Is it a Snapchat? Who does the Snapchat belong to? If it's a Snapchat, we don't have those answers, and I don't think he can respond to as to whose Snapchat or Facebook page it is.
Okay, we can go on without it, not a problem. All right, so. Mr. Cowley, that text message that you read, threatening, correct?
Yes,
Okay, and how did that make you feel when you read that?
upset and confused.
Okay. And at the time you believe that text message had come from Anthony, correct?
Yes.
And how do you know Anthony?
He's a neighbor within the neighborhood.
Okay. And what did you do after your daughter showed this to you?
I took a deep breath. I got dressed. I went down to Anthony's home. I knocked on the door. I got no reply. I left and came home.
Okay. And then what happened once you got back home?
I'd say 5, maybe 10 minutes afterwards, Anthony and Alex both came from home.
Okay.
To
And-
Anthony and who, Alex?
Alex.
And what happened when they came to your house?
Initially, I asked Anthony, why the hell is he sending my daughter threatening text messages?
Okay.
His reply to me was, your daughter better stop lying on my homie. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Then Alex mentions that I never raped Nevaeh. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Rape? She's never told me anything about this. So then I stopped and thought, like, why the hell are you speaking to Anthony at the time, sending my daughter threatening text over something that happened between these two?
And just to clarify, Nevaeh, that's your daughter? correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened next?
Cursing and swearing began to ensue. They cursed at me, I cursed at them. Anthony made a threat towards me, talking about he'd kick my ass. I step off the porch to fight. He backs up. They're still talking stuff. I say to them, you both are right there. You came down to my house to fight me. It's a 2-on-1. If you want to fight me, you can fight. They continued to argue. They walked away. We talked a little more. I went back in the house. We separated.
Okay. And this argument was caught on the security cameras you have on outside your house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And we viewed the surveillance footage at the last time this hearing was supposed to go forward. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And do you remember what you observed on that video?
Initially, which part of this? Which video was speaking on?
Video of the argument between you.
Yeah, it shows me on my porch coming out
Objection,
addressing.
Your Honor, he's describing a document or a video that's not in evidence.
I join of that objection, Your Honor. It does have its rule.
Okay. The video that we watched.
Oh,
Wait, hold on. Let me change my question.
Are you gonna respond to the objection?
Your Honor, I can ask a different question. It's fine. I have every
Objection sustained.
intention to include the video. Thank you. The video that you watched, did it accurately depict the conversation or argument as you remember it?
yes,
And how did you recognize all the people in that video?
yes.
And who did you recognize?
Alex and Andy.
Okay. And did you recognize yourself as well?
Yes,
Okay. And on that video, that shows the events exactly as you remember them happening, correct?
yes.
Okay, Your Honor, this has been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 3, and I'd ask to play it for the court.
Any objection?
I have one board year question, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
One primary point.
Hold on
maybe-
one second. It's fine.
I may break it up into 3 tiny questions. Your Honor. Mr. Is it Huawei? Is how you pronounce it?
Cowie.
Huh?
Cowie.
Cowie. This is a video from a computer system of some sort that you're able to access.
Yes, it's Xfinity home security system.
And did you access this, provide this to law enforcement?
Yes.
And it's several different videos, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
Does the video show the entirety from the beginning until the end, or is there any portions of the video missing?
There are no portions of the video missing because the camera is motion activated. So as long as there's motion going on around it, noise, sound, anything, it's tracking and picking up.
So does this video that was provided to the police that include the events that took place prior to Anthony and Alex being on your porch?
Which one?
Does this video show any events prior to Anthony and Alex being at your porch and speaking with you?
It should show all events.
Oh.
Because I'm uncertain with the question you're asking because
Sure,
I'm not clear either. What event? What do you mean prior to? Because it's motion sensitive.
I understand.
So you mean if the
I
squirrel
understand.
came by, did it pick it up?
I'll clarify, Your Honor. You indicated at some point you went down to 217 Denver. Is that shown on this video at all?
this video, no, there should be a prior
Any of
video
the
to
videos you provided to law enforcement?
Yes, they should all have it.
Okay. And so you're saying that he provided all motion activated video from that day to
From the
officers.
incident, not from the incident point, because all videos in there may be completely irrelevant, because there was dead time where we didn't speak and see each other.
Sure.
So there's time in there, there's just nothing, absolutely nothing going on, me taking care of stuff around my home. There's times cars driving by, there's video of them walking past my house, making comments, there's stuff, there's different things within there.
So there are portions of time that were not provided because you determined that they weren't relevant.
I didn't determine anything. Every video I had from the time that I got, from the moment I walked out my door till the very end of the incident, which is being cops are called, was sent over and handed over to.
That's what I'm trying to clarify. So you provided them everything.
Yes, everything, that's my relevance, what I thought relevant didn't matter, it's up to what.
You
the
just
court-
gave them
yes.
everything. Thank you, Your Honor. No objection.
Thank you. The people exhibit 3 is admitted.
Thank you.
I ain't gonna take no bit of it. I ain't gonna take no bit, bro. No bullshit, bro. I ain't gonna take no bullshit right now. I want to open it without you know. Bro, the fuck in front of my house. Bye. Fuck your uncle. Fuck you in your uncle. Goodbye. Goodbye. I'm right here, nigga. Fuck you up. I'm right here. I'm right here. Try me, you little bitch made ass nigga. Bro, $20 bitch fucking bum. Be gone. Bum. $20 nigga. Fuck you ain't $20 an hour. Nigga, get the fuck out of here. Be gone. Fuck up.
Your Honor, for the record, I stopped it at the 36-second mark.
Miss Lacey, do you have a name of that video that you just?
Yeah. And I'm gonna continue to play it, Your Honor. I just wanted to stop it for 1 second for that. But the video name is 317 _ Denver _ street with a period _ surveillance _ video _1.mp4.
Thank you.
Now, Mr. Cowie, on this video, we see them leaving, but this did not end the argument, correct? This continued.
And I guess you call it a pause. You know,
Okay.
it ended at that time, but nothing was resolved.
Okay. Your Honor, I'm gonna continue playing it for 36 seconds.
Fuck you, bitch made ass nigga. Y'all know where the fuck I'm at. You know where I'm at, nigga. So be gone, bitch. Right here. Been here. Watch what? Exactly. Keep y'all asses walking and say where the fuck y'all at. I know, but you walk your bitch ass out here, you don't give a fuck nothing about it. You talking to her, you don't give a fuck about it. Keep y'all asses walking. Say what? Grown ass ball. Grown ass ball. Yeah. All right, believe that.
All right, Your Honor, I've stopped that at the 1 minute and 19-second mark.
And I have a quick request for technology purposes. Would it be possible to change the corner of where the Zoom video is? So that way the court and everyone else can see the time ticker? for the video?
I don't have any control over that. I do not believe. Let's see. Because it's not looking like that on my screen.
That's okay. man.
My screen has everybody on the other side. I don't know why I did that, but let's see if
I just thought it would be helpful to the court to be able to take notes as in specific time.
I can see on mine. That's what I'm saying. It's not showing what I'm seeing. I can see the 119 on mine.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Now, Mr. Cowie, during the argument, do you remember somebody saying to you something about their uncle?
Vaguely, yes.
Do you know what they said to you?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the extent this calls for hearsay, as it would be a statement not of, so long as it's not a statement of my client, and therefore cannot be used against him. I understand it could be used against the statement of the individual that said it for a statement, but there's no conspiracy charge in this. I understand it's a theory potentially of accessory, but not a conspiracy.
Okay, so you're seeking to introduce the statement of either defendant Anthony or Alex, is that what you're
Correct.
seeking? Okay, To the extent that the statement is towards your client, then I'll sustain the objection, but the statement comes in.
Thank you. Remember what that statement was?
Not off the top of my head, I just remember something about my uncle and I said, fuck it.
Okay, and who was that person that made that statement to you?
That would have been Anthony.
Okay, and did you know who his uncle was when he said
No,
it to you?
not at that time, no.
Okay, and what did that statement mean anything to you?
It meant that he called his uncle over to come over here and possibly try to do something.
Okay, and that's what you thought, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so you perceive that to be a threat, is that
Yes.
correct? Okay. And then after they left and you went into the house, what did you do then?
Started cleaning, not a whole lot, because I was starting to get my stuff around, because I had to work that day too, so I was starting to get my stuff around. So get ready to roll into our weekend, so I was getting ready to go up north on Sunday to go do some shooting, so I had some of our equipment out to inspect and get it prepared.
Okay. Did anything happen with regards to this incident that we're here for today?
At the time that ended, no, nothing else had continued on since I walked in the house and they walked away.
Okay, and then what happened after that?
Eventually, at some point, my daughter left to go get her boyfriend because I was getting ready for work, and then just to keep an eye out, make sure nothing's going on, I periodically walk in and out of the house to go on my porch to just monitor and make sure they're not walking by, just to make sure, like, if by chance she's coming home and they're walking down the street, there'd be no confrontation between them without me.
Are you concerned for someone's safety at that point?
My daughters, yes.
Okay. And then, does anything happen after that?
Eventually, later on, I went back on the porch. Alex yelled at me to take my ass back in the house. I told him, "Fuck you, make me." He proceeded to walk across the street, what I would assume would be towards Anthony's home. I can't make 100% because I was just looking down that way. Then eventually, Anthony came out and started yelling down the street at me too. I don't remember 100% what he said. I think he said something about his uncle. I know I started screaming out, "Fuck him, fuck his uncle," and basically started just going around, "Fuck yous." Then within, say, 2 to 3 minutes of doing that, Dalton pulls up in front of my home.
Okay. And if you remember, how did they pull up in front of your home?
Not super reckless, like they're, like not skidding up the block, but in what it would appear in somewhat of a hurry.
Okay.
To what it appears that they were driving faster than the speed limit, but I didn't have anything to clock them, so I can't definitively say they were.
Okay. And at the time that you said Dalton pulled up, was he by himself or was he with another person?
No, he was not by himself.
Okay. Who was he with? If you know.
He was with Mary and his son.
Okay. And what kind of vehicle were they in?
I'd call it a gold Cadillac.
That's fine.
I said I can't remember the exact, the whatever it was, but I know it was a golden Cadillac.
And where did they pull up in relation to your house?
In front of my house, kind of at basically between like the end of my driveway and like what would be considered just past my front door, like kind of like just basically like right in front of my house.
Okay. And when they stopped in front of your house, is
Yes.
that correct? Okay. And did you recognize them at that point?
No, but I just off assumption of what was going on, I kind of assumed who he might have been. I didn't realize who he was or that I had any previous knowledge of who he was until he put up on.
Okay. Have you ever seen Dalton or Marianne before?
I've seen Dalton before, yes.
Okay. And do you have any type of relationship with him, or friendly or anything like that?
I call it cordial. I would say he's known my ex-brother-in-law.
Okay.
I've seen him around there from time to time. We go over there, we hung out, we smoke a couple times together, but I wouldn't say we were friends. That was just cordial situation, just being cordial and friendly.
Okay. And when they pulled up in front of your house, what happened next?
I recognized him. Don't know if he recognized me, doesn't really care. He asked me if I had some words for his nephew. I'm like, no, I didn't have any words, but I did have to ask him a question. He was like, "Oh, I thought you had something to say to my nephew." I was like, "Oh, you mean when I said fuck your uncle?" And he looked at me, he was like, oh, I'm like, in my brain, like, "Oh, your uncle." So he jumps out the car. I move over towards the back And as he's coming around the car, I see what appears to be a gun in his hand. So I'm like, shit, I'm screwed.
Okay, let me talk about that gun for a minute. Did you get a look at that firearm?
Yeah.
Can you describe it to the court?
I'm making an assumption off the caliber, but what I assumed it was a 9mm black, had an extended magazine on it with appears to be, I'm not sure if it was some type of laser sight or flashlight on the bottom of it. It just had some type of optical thing on the bottom that looked like it was missing.
Okay, but it was definitely a black handgun and it appeared to have an extended magazine, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and were Anthony and Alex still down at?
No, they were at
Anthony's
this time, they had made their way down towards my house and they were actually out in the street at the front end of the car.
Okay. And you indicated that the person who had that handgun was Dalton, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what happened after he got out of the vehicle?
As he came around the vehicle, he was like, "Oh, fuck your uncle, fuck me, fuck me." And then as he pulled the gun up, I just kind of froze and allowed him to walk closer toward me. And he got close enough where I could grab a hold of him, which is what I did. And I launched for him and grabbed. He ended up flying back or being knocked back to the car. I go after him again to grab hold of the gun, and as we're touching over it, he managed to get it pointed over my head. I move it away, it goes off.
Okay.
I then say to him, "Oh, you're really trying to kill me. You're fucking trying to kill me. You're really trying to kill me." So I changed the way I was fighting with him. So I maneuvered the gun from, as we're touching, I moved it, I tried to turn it so I could fire at him with his own weapon. I can't get my hand in there, so we end up pinning it to his stomach. And as we're tussling around the car, we move towards the edge of my house. I'm uncertain who grabbed me because I don't know, but somebody grabbed me from behind and tried to pull me off. So I make sure my grip was tighter so I didn't get pulled off of him. We eventually fall on the ground. I ended up in a position where I'm kind of on his waist in the stomach, and I lost track of the gun again. I immediately jump on the gun again, pointed at my head again. I move it, it goes off again. But before it goes off that second time, I'm actually getting hit in the head by Alex hit me twice. Anthony is punching me in this section of my head, and Marion is striking me in the side of my head.
Okay, so you indicated that Alex hit you on the right side of the
Right
head?
side, the right back side of here. Anthony was striking me here, and Marion was striking me over here.
So Anthony's striking you kind of towards the left back side of
Left,
your head,
yes.
and Marianne is striking you to the left.
Left temple, yes.
Let me ask you that. How do you know who was punching you where?
By identifying who was where at the time, me being on the ground.
Okay.
Because I knew once I was spinning and I'm on the ground here, like I said, I'm on top of here. I'm trying to see where everybody at because I'm hearing somebody scream, "Grab the other gun, get the other gun." So I have to identify who's where so I know where I got to go to not get shot.
Okay.
So that's when I made the identification. I'm looking. Marion was off, kind of close, not by the car, but could get to the car easier than the other two. And that's when I realized, okay, Alex is here, here, and here. So they're there. And then now I'm basically, as I'm hearing them scream for the gun, I go get the other gun. I realized that I have to get myself out of this situation. The only thing I've come up with was try to get the gun empty. I couldn't get out of his hand, so I took the gun. At that point, I realized the way I had the gun facing, I'm trying to wrench it out of his hand. I can see the magazine release. So as I reach up, I hit the magazine release, pull the magazine out, throw it, and then reach up, empty the slide. I noticed that the gun was empty because the slide had cocked open, and I could see clearly through the gun. That indicates that I know from gun training that it's empty. That's when I push off of push off of Dalton, jump up, I run in the house, and then when I go in the house, I grab my gun, and as I come back around, Dalton's kind of got his gun pointed at my house, but not at my house. It's kind of up angled that way, and I began firing at him.
Okay. And now you had already indicated this gun has already gone off twice, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And you were in the house and you were coming back out when you saw the gun being pointed towards your house,
Yes.
correct? Okay. And you had already told the court you thought he was trying to kill you, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And when you saw the gun being pointed at your house, did you still think they were trying to kill you?
Yes.
Okay. And were there other people inside your house?
Yes, very much.
And were you also concerned for their safety?
Yes.
Okay. And this incident was also caught on your security cameras, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and we've also viewed this surveillance footage,
Yes.
correct? Okay, and what you just described to the court, is that depicted on this video?
Yes,
Okay, and would you indicate to the court that the video is an accurate depiction of what you remember happening that
Yes.
day? Okay, Your Honor, I'd ask that the video be admitted as People's Exhibit number 4.
Any objection?
None.
Not for preliminary exam purposes only. If she could identify that video too.
So I'm not gonna go through the whole thing,
Sure.
but it is the same exact
Numbers.
number, except for the number is 5 instead of 1.
The exhibit is admitted.
And just for court note, I intend to play the video all the way to the end.
Make me, bitch. I'm right here, still saying fuck your uncle, fuck all three of you bitch made niggas. Fuck y'all. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Did I talk to your nephew? No, sir, but I did have to speak to him. What the fuck you mean, bro? You really gonna talk to me? You really fucking from? You really gonna do this shit? Dad, tell me to go. Go to me. Go down, don't go that big, bro. Don't do that big. Move your my ear. Bitch, let it go. Let it the fuck go. Let it the fuck go. Make it sound the best thing I got it. Bitch, let it go. Bitch. Bitch, let it the fuck go. Fuck wrong with you, boy? You have to inside that fucking house, nigga. No. Yeah. No. Get it! No! Give me the gun!
All right, Mr. Crowley, I know you indicated that you had shot when you saw that gun pointed at your house, correct?
yes.
And what happened after that?
After that, I kept the gun pointed at them. I continually heard them say, "Get the other gun, grab the other gun, hand me the other gun, hand me the gun." I saw Marion scurrying around the car, which I assumed he was trying to grab the other gun, which told me that.
Your Honor, I'm
still
gonna
in danger.
object to the speculation, and I'm also gonna object to the potential hearsay. He's saying they, he's not identifying who is saying what, and I think that's important for hearsay purposes.
Okay.
And then, Your Honor, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt,
Oh,
but I also have to say something too. Number one, there was never another gun. And number
okay.
two, that
Whoa,
is not the
whoa,
full
whoa,
video.
whoa. You're not on the stand. You don't get to get testimony. Did he leave? I don't see it. Oh, let me change my view. Okay, Mr. Moore, you can't just blurt out. You had the right to be here today and you chose not to appear. The court did not give you permission not to appear. You made that decision on your own. You're not going to just blurt out in the middle of the exam some testimony. As to the objection for speculation, well, let me address the second portion of your objection, which was the potential hearsay. I'll allow her to clarify, although it's clear by the video that the 4 people that were there were the defendants. So,
Well, yes, but the issue is who is supposedly saying what, and that's a very important distinction in this case.
okay, I think that under the circumstances, just by watching the video, if he's able to determine who said what, that's fine. If he doesn't, I'm overruling the objection because there was a lot of commotion and there's 4 people seen in the video attacking him. And so if he said he heard something during the attack, I'll allow him to testify as to who believes he said it, who he believes said it. So I'll let you address the hearsay. And then the other objection was for speculation because he was about to explain.
I would just indicate to the court that we're not offering it for the truth of the matter asserted. That's just what he's heard, and it's
Okay,
more.
well, then the speculation is it's present sense of impression,
Yeah.
I'm assuming. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we heard all those things, and then we're.
But
Did
we
they
haven't
leave it?
clarified, do he know, does
Oh,
he know?
Did you know who said any of those things?
To get the other gun and go grab the other gun, I believe that came out of Marion's mouth, but I'm going to get the other gun. I remember hearing that. As to who specifically outright said what, I was in a state of trying to defend for my life, so I couldn't see and watch everyone's mouth. And I only voice I know distinctly would be Alex, and I don't remember him saying anything, maybe. So I'm not gonna just start throwing things out there. So, but I know I heard somebody say, get the gun, grab the other gun. I believe saying get the other gun was Marion. As to the rest of who exactly said what, I can't put that in there.
Okay. And what happened after
After that, they didn't leave. They continued to somebody, I believe, was Marion on the other side of the car where they ran behind, was running and looking around the car, to my knowledge, to grab the other gun.
Okay, and that's based on what you heard them
Yes.
saying. Okay. Or someone saying. Okay, and then what happened after that?
I opened fire on the car because I wanted to keep him from grabbing the gun. And as I said, I couldn't see him through because the back side of the car was tinted windows. And so I shot that way and I didn't continue to shoot because the glass didn't break and I couldn't see clearly through there. So I waited and he came back to the driver's side. I could see through the window. I actually had a clear line of sight shot at Marion. But what happened is he put his hands up, he showed me no weapon, so I didn't fire. And I allowed them the opportunity to go, get up, leave, and get Dalton some help.
Okay. And did they leave?
Yes, and as they were leaving, Dalton made a threat as they're driving off, this shit ain't over.
Okay. And what did you do after they left?
Call the cops.
Your Honor, I'm gonna show it some more to People's Proposed Exhibit 5, 6, and 7 to Defense Counsel.
I thought you were.
Can I have permission to approach the witness?
You may, is this a proposal exhibit?
Yeah. Mr. Kelly, without telling us what's in the photo, please take a look at each individual photo and tell me if you recognize them.
I do, yes.
How do you recognize them?
This is the incident of me almost being shot.
Okay, and each of those pictures, would you say accurately depict portions of the assault that you described and we watched on video?
Yes.
Okay, can you please describe what's depicted in what's been marked as People's Proposed Exhibit number 5?
In this picture, me, Dalton, and Marion, and Chris Dalton have a gun in his hand.
Okay, and in People's Proposed Exhibit number 6, what's in that?
Me, Dalton, and Marion, and Chris that Dalton is pointing the gun at me.
Okay, and in proposed exhibit number 7.
It's me, Dalton, Alex, Marion, and Anthony, and Dalton's pointing the gun at me.
Okay, Your Honor, I'd ask that these be admitted to the court as people's exhibit 5, 6, and 7.
None.
None for preliminary exam purposes.
No objection, Your Honor.
Okay, people's 5, 6, and 7 are admitted. I am gonna have you replay the video because I just needed to, I need to identify. Or I'm assuming, who's the person with the black one, sir?
Who's pointing the gun at me?
Yes,
That would be Dalton.
okay, and who would be,
That one back there, that is Anthony.
that's Anthony, and who is this?
That is Marion.
Okay,
Can I see that, Your Honor, which one is pointing at Mary?
he says Marion is here.
Okay. Thank you.
Probably help identify clothing, yes.
Okay, it looks like the person pointing the firearm has on a dark colored jacket or hoodie. Is that correct?
Yes,
Is there a hat on his head? It looks, I can't tell from this picture, but it appears.
I believe he had his hood up and possibly the red on.
Okay, it looks like the person you identified as Marion has a gray or dark colored hoodie or sweatshirt.
I think he had a black hoodie on as well.
Okay, and then there's a multicolored sweatshirt, jacket. It looks like it has a little bit of fatigue, some orange, yellow, and some other colors. Who is that?
That would be Alex, because the poofy hair is what gave it away.
Okay, and then the person with the yellow is
That would be Alex. Not Alex, sorry, that would be Anthony.
Anthony. Okay, thank you. I think actually that was the reason I was gonna have to replay the video, but no worries, I got it clarified there.
Now, Your Honor, I'm also going to show what's been marked as people's proposed exhibits 8, 9, and 10 for defense counsel. Your Honor, can I approach the witness? So, Mr. Cowley, again, without telling us anything about the pictures, can you just look at them and tell me if you recognize them?
Yes.
Okay, and how do you recognize them?
These were images taken shortly after the assault incident happened.
Okay, and are they pictures that were taken of you?
Yes,
Okay, and do each of those pictures fairly and accurately depict what you looked like and the injuries you sustained during this incident?
yes,
And had you had any of those injuries prior to this incident?
no,
Okay, Your Honor, I request that these exhibits be admitted as people's exhibits 8, 9, and 10.
Any objection?
None.
Thank
No,
you.
Your Honor. No objection.
8, 9,
None
10.
for preliminary exam purposes.
Thank you. 8, 9, and 10 are admitted.
All right, can you please describe for the court what's depicted in what's been marked as exhibit number 8?
these are two photos of me taken by LPD shortly after the incident.
Okay, and are there any injuries that you can see on those pictures?
Some redness and I think a little swelling.
Okay, and can you describe what's been depicted in exhibit number 9?
My finger's bleeding.
Okay. And that was also a result of this incident, is that correct?
Yes,
Okay, and can you please describe what is depicted in what's been marked as people's exhibit number 10?
the backside of my hand is also bleeding with cuts on it.
Okay, and that was sustained as a result of this incident, correct?
Yes.
All right, Your Honor, published to the court. Your Honor, at this time, I do not have any further questions for Mr. Cowley.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break before I cross-examine. There's a lot of cross-examining. Good morning. Are you Amanda Frost?
I am, Your Honor.
Okay, and you're here on behalf of Wayne Roper?
Correct, Your Honor.
Okay. I'm in the middle of a preliminary examination, and we have multiple witnesses. We will not be, I don't know why civil would put a hearing on at 10 o'clock when they saw that I had a Ford co-defendant exam set at 8:30, but they did. And so rather than have you all sit here waiting while I do that, I can put you in a private meeting room and see if you can resolve. I think this is pretty clear. One person says they have proof they paid, the other one says they didn't receive it. If you don't have that proof to show each other, and it can't be resolved, you all can, I can have you log back in this afternoon once this is done.
Your Honor, if I
I don't
may, I was
foresee-
actually, my apologies.
Oh, you're fine.
I was able to speak to opposing counsel this morning. I sent over proof of payment yesterday. I see he has joined us also. And I believe our agreement this morning was that he was going to ask for this court to set aside the eviction.
Okay, Mr. Quinn?
That's correct, Judge.
Okay, sounds good. So I will note that here, and do we have an order here? Okay, Ms. Frost, can you provide me with an order? Because I don't have one in the file.
Yes, Your Honor, I will provide that to the court.
Okay, thank you. You're all set.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Have a good one.
You too.
Okay, everyone's back and we are back on the record, and Mr. Cowie, you're still under oath, and counsel, you can cross-examine.
Mr. Cowie, before the Cadillac arrives, you testified that Alex and Anthony, my client, walked down to your house, correct?
Yes.
And you guys started talking about your daughter, about the text message, et cetera, in terms of an argument, correct?
Yes.
And you indicated on direct examination that Anthony had made a threat to, well, I'll kick your ass, correct?
Something to that line, yes.
And that was the only threat he made to you, correct?
At that time that I distinctly remember, yeah, but I'm pretty,
Thank you.
yeah, I'm gonna say yes. Let's say yes.
Do you agree Anthony never said, I'm gonna shoot you?
No,
Do you agree with me?
no, I do not agree. He did say that it just came out later. No, you're asking me, did he say he's gonna shoot? Oh,
Anthony, my client.
no, sorry.
All right, let's backtrack.
Anthony did not say he's gonna shoot me. What he implied was he encouraged Dalton to shoot.
No, I'm not asking you to speculate.
Not
I'm asking you
speculation.
Stricken. Let's start this again. When Anthony said, I'll kick your ass. That was the only threat Anthony made you, correct?
Yes,
And you agree, Anthony never told you or threatened you that I'm going to shoot you.
I can agree to that, yes.
Yes. And you agree with me also at that point. You remember hearing something about Anthony's uncle, the word uncle, right?
Yes,
You agree with me, Anthony never told you my uncle's gonna shoot you. Do you agree?
no,
Anthony said my uncle's gonna shoot you?
and that is, we're speaking at which specific point? Them coming down to my home?
Yes.
Then no, he did not say that.
Okay, thank you. Now, Cadillac pulls up, Dalton gets out of the driver's seat, correct?
Mhm.
Yes?
Yes,
And Dalton walks around the back corner of his Cadillac, you approach the back corner as well. Of the Cadillac.
yes,
Dalton more or less raised his arm with a gun more or less right away, correct?
As he's coming around the car,
Yes,
his arm is coming up, yes,
and obviously there's a gun in his hand.
yes.
Do you agree that Dalton Moore did not shoot you with the gun? You agree?
Yes.
All right. Then at this point, you're approximately how many feet away from Dalton? Pretty close.
At which point are you speaking? When the gun is directly in my face or when he's at the edge of his car?
When the gun is directly in your face, Dalton must be 1 or 2 feet away from you.
I would say roughly 3 feet tops.
3 feet tops, okay? Then at this point, well, do you hear any noises from the gun at that point? When he's 3 feet away from you? Any noises from the gun?
No, because I'd be dead if there was a gun.
So to answer my question, you did not hear any noises as Dalton's pointing the gun at you.
Correct. Okay.
You agree with me?
I agree.
Okay. At this point, you lunge towards Dalton, grabbing the gun, correct?
Yeah.
Do you agree that
Yes.
at this point, as you're lunging, Dalton still does not shoot the gun at you? You agree? As you're lunging.
At the point of the launch, no, he didn't because he couldn't.
He didn't shoot the gun, correct?
Correct.
All right. Now, obviously, there's a struggle, then the gun accidentally goes off. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, is there a struggle?
Yes, that's a struggle.
Okay, the struggle is you physically grabbing the gun, correct?
No, me grabbing his wrist.
Okay. And then after you grab his wrist, does any of your hand touch the gun?
Not until after it goes off.
Okay. Now, when the gun goes off, you agree that you were not struck by a bullet?
I agree. Yes.
Okay. And at about this point, is it correct that Anthony and Alex then approach you? Is that roughly about what happened? The struggle over the gun, then Alex and Anthony come back towards you.
Yes.
All right. Now, you testified on direct examination that my client Anthony had hit you 1, 2 times, 3 times, something along those lines. Is that correct?
I never gave a distinct number except for Alex.
Okay.
The only person that I know that hit me twice was Alex. Distinctly, he hit me. And then it was it.
Did Anthony, my client, you see him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes. Sorry.
Did he hit you at all during this melee?
Yes.
Okay, you don't know how many times?
I don't know where he struck me several times in the back of the head.
Okay. At that point, did Anthony ever have a gun in his hand?
No, not that I can confirm.
Did Anthony say anything at that point while this melee is going on?
I'm uncertain if he was the one asking to toss me the gun.
All right, you already testified that was Mary, correct?
I testified that Marion said, get the other gun.
Okay.
That was a term in that I'm pretty sure when her said, toss me the gun. I don't know if that was Anthony or Alex. I didn't hear. I don't know.
Okay, that's fair enough. Now, at some point, you're able to release the clip of the gun that Dalton's holding. Is that what happened?
Magazine, yes.
Magazine. And then the fight stops, correct?
No,
You break away.
I'd get away, but the fight didn't stop. He's still in front of my house with a weapon.
You and Dalton separate at that point, correct?
Yes.
And then you run towards the front door of your house,
Mhm.
correct? Is that yes?
Yes.
And then is it at this point Dalton's pointing a gun at you as you're running towards the front door of your house?
I would say it's more as I'm going in, but yes, that's roughly about when it happened.
Right. Did Dalton Moore shoot the gun at you as you're entering your house?
Did a round come out the gun? No. Did he pull the trigger? Yes.
Did he shoot the gun at you as you're running into the house?
I'm gonna say this again.
Well,
He
he
pulled
answered the
trigger.
question. He answered the
Nothing
question.
came
And
out.
I'm talking. He answered the question and we saw it on the video. So you can move on.
Did you hear any noises from the gun as you're running into the house?
No.
You go get your gun, you come back to your front doorway, correct?
Mhm.
Is
Said
that yes?
yes.
Yes. Yes.
At this point, do you see my client Anthony anywhere? At this point,
Anthony is closer to the car this time. Yes.
to the car, meaning the
The
Cadillac?
Cadillac, yes.
All right. Who's the closest to you when you're at your front doorway?
The closest to me would have technically been Marion, and Dalton would have been slightly further away.
Before I move on, what was Anthony doing by the car? Was he doing anything?
Apparently at the time, it looked like he was kind of walking away.
Okay, Anthony was walking away, correct?
It appeared that way.
Was Anthony saying anything at that point?
Wasn't listening for him.
Excuse me?
Wasn't listening for him.
Okay, you didn't hear his voice as far as you remember,
Not
correct?
that I remember.
Okay. You're at the front doorway, you have your gun, you point your gun out the doorway, correct?
Yes.
Then you started to fire your gun, correct?
Yes.
Isn't it correct that Dalton Moore, he's walking towards his vehicle and you shoot Dalton Moore in the back?
No, that is not correct.
Okay. So the video is inaccurate.
I'm gonna say this again. What happened was he pointed the gun at my house. He still pointed the gun at the house when I start shooting. He is not walking towards the car. He's like this. That's
Okay.
not walking towards the car.
When he's pointing the gun at your house at this stage,
And that's a threat.
do you agree that Dalton Moore did not fire the gun at that point?
I would agree.
Okay. Well, just to wrap this up, my client Anthony, he never shot a gun at you, you agree?
Yes.
You agree that my client Anthony never even possessed a gun in his hand?
Yes.
And you agree with me that Anthony never told Dalton, shoot you? You agree?
No.
You don't agree?
No, because he came down the block, shoot that motherfucker, and know distinctly Anthony's voice.
Now, this is the first I've heard of this.
Well,
You
I'm
can
gonna
go play the
stop you.
video.
Stop it, stop it, stop it. The reason why you're gonna answer the question, but you're not gonna be argumentative. The reason I'm gonna stop you is because when you asked the question before, he tried to clarify and you asked a specific time frame. Did he ask or ask someone to shoot him? You didn't specify or allow him to specify when, because he was trying to say that before.
All right, my apologies, Your Honor. I'm gonna have to follow up on this.
Yeah.
All right. Is it your testimony today, Mr. Qualley, that my client Anthony had instructed Dalton Moore to shoot you?
Yes.
When did this happen?
At the start of the confrontation, before Dalton even came, when Dalton came out, raised the gun, you hear, "Nah, fuck that, shoot that motherfucker." Those words came out of Anthony's mouth,
Where was Anthony standing at that point?
coming up the block. He was probably 2, maybe 2.5 houses away.
Distinguish between Anthony and Alex at that point? You that far away?
I have pretty good eyesight. There, Alex lives on the going westbound. He lives on the left-hand side of the road. I can distinctly see Alex. They don't look alike. I can clearly tell the difference between Alex and Anthony. Alex is more towards his side of the road, walking down towards my house. Actually, no, this time I think they're, let me get this straight. Coming down the street. They're walking down toward the middle of the road, off to the right-hand side a little bit. Alex is towards the middle. Anthony is right here closer towards the curb. Both towards the middle of the street, walking toward me. As Dalton pulls up, I know the voice because I know Alex's voice. Anthony screams out, "Nah, fuck that. Shoot that motherfucker." That's when Dalton raises the gun up at me. That's when I lunge at Dalton. Dalton tries to shoot me. I move the gun from my head. It goes off. That's when you hear me say, "You really trying to fucking kill me, ain't you? You were really trying to shoot me." So I'm staring him, squaring his eye. As I take the gun, I rotate it toward his stomach to try to shoot him in his stomach for trying to shoot me. Then what appears in the video, Anthony then jumps on my back to try to pry me off of.
Mr. Qualley, you talked to the police how many times about this incident?
The police?
Yes. Roughly.
I know distinctly like the initial interview, and I hand over all the evidence that I had. I think we might have talked once, then other than that, it's just like phone conversation for evidence.
A couple, 3 times.
I can't give a number, but it's less than 10, more than 3.
Did you ever tell the police Anthony said to shoot him?
I didn't think I would have to because it's all in the video.
So your
but
answer is you didn't, correct?
Did I tell the police that? I don't believe I did.
Thank you. Nothing.
Okay. Are you seeking a redirect after each, or do you want to wait until the end?
I'm gonna wait at the end. That's okay.
Thank you.
My turn. May I borrow the table here? All right, thank you. Is it Mr.
Howard.
Howie? I'm sorry. My name is David Carter. I represent Mr. Church in this matter. I'm going to ask you a series of questions. If there's a question you don't understand, please let me know and I'll try to rephrase that. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Second of all, I always like to let my witnesses know that how I'm going to proceed. I'm going to try to proceed in the same pattern as the prosecutor, so you're not surprised and you know what's going on, okay?
All right. Yes.
I'm not going to try to be confidential, but sometimes that does happen. Now, first of all, I'm going to ask you some questions that haven't been addressed. You actually signed an immunity agreement, is that correct?
Yes.
In other words, the prosecutor gave you immunity, meaning that you cannot be charged with anything regarding this incident as long as you come to court and testify, correct?
I assume that's the purpose of it. I don't know 100%.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object. He didn't actually sign it. It's signed by Your Honor, and it was submitted by my office.
Okay,
He's seen it, but he's never signed anything.
fair enough. Thanks for the clarification. You know there's an immunity agreement, correct?
Yes.
All right. Did you get a chance to read through that?
Yes. I mean, I've given an opportunity to look at it and read it over.
Okay, and that's pretty much what it is that you're not going to be charged with anything, correct? Any of your conduct this day, correct?
To my knowledge, yes.
And that was done at the bequest of an attorney, correct?
One of you guys is, I would assume, because you were ready to proceed and that kind of brought up. So
Oh, you did?
I don't really know how to answer that because it's a legal matter that I wasn't.
Fair
part of.
enough. You didn't hire an attorney who requested something like that before
Not
you testified?
until it was brought up in court that I may need one. So
Oh.
like I said, that became a legal proceeding that I was totally unaware of that I would even need.
Okay, fair enough. Now, some other foundational questions I have with you. You talked a lot, you were able to identify this gun as a 9mm, an extended magazine. And this happened in a very short period of time, correct?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, so it appears you have some trainings with guns, correct?
My wife's family is hunters, and so we kind of deal with guns.
Okay. Have you had any special trainings in guns?
Nothing outside of my martial arts training, which has been nothing more than a couple of years.
What's your employment, sir?
Right now I'm a delivery driver for what's the company name? Century Pharmacy. Just started this week.
Okay, so you're not a guard of any sort that
No.
handles handguns at all?
No.
All right. Now, when Alex and Anthony first came up to your house, do you remember the time of day that was?
Sometime in the morning. I'm not 100% exact the hours you're speaking on. Like, I don't know if it was like 9, 10, 11.
Okay, fair enough.
It was in the morning.
It's on the video, correct? Very short conversation, correct?
Tried to keep it that way, yes.
And there was some cussing back and forth, correct?
Yes.
Is it fair to say you were pretty hostile, pretty upset?
Yes.
You were using a lot of F-bombs and the N-word, correct?
After threats were made towards me verbally, yes.
Okay, but you were
Yes.
using those words, correct?
Yes.
And you said that prior to them coming up to you, you actually went down to their house, correct?
Yes.
And you knocked on the door.
Yes.
Correct? Nobody answered, right?
Yes.
And do you remember the time frame between you going to their house, nobody answering, and then them coming up to your house?
Total time, I'd say 10 minutes.
Okay, very short period of time. Do you know whether or not your daughter was texting them back and forth during this time?
At the time of the confrontation between them, she wasn't.
Okay. Do you know how they knew you were down at their house knocking on their door?
Either they was there and didn't answer, or somebody told them I went down.
You don't.
I don't know.
You don't. You don't have any personal knowledge of
No.
how they found it. The time frame of them coming to your house with that argument there and them leaving and the uncle pulling up, how far are we now?
Maybe 15 to 20 minutes, maybe.
So between that 15 and 20 minutes, what were you doing inside your house?
Cleaning my house, getting stuff out, cleaning up dirt and stuff that my kids and left around, picking up trash, throwing out garbage, moving empty boxes out of my home.
Just everyday stuff?
Yes,
And I think you testified earlier that you.
that I got my guns out because I was looking to get ready.
Well,
for
wait
our
a minute.
weekend.
I don't think you testified that you got your guns
Yes,
out.
I did. I specified we were getting ready for our weekend, and I
Okay.
got some of my stuff out, because I expected my stuff, because it was Friday, I believe it was. I worked Saturday, that Sunday, we were going up north, to
Okay,
do some shooting.
I totally apologize. I missed that. So you did get your guns out,
Yes,
and because you were gonna go use them on on that weekend?
use them
Is that
for the
correct?
weekend, because we go up north every now and then, and we'll take our weapons up there, and we'll go do some shooting and try to get
Okay,
them in.
so tell me so you got your guns out. What were you doing with your guns?
My 9mm got out, made sure my magazines were loaded, made sure everything worked, kind of check my slide, look down the barrel, make sure it was okay, put it away, got my little 22 rifle out, make sure everything was working right on it, as to my knowledge, without, putting it around, put it, set it down, and went back to my job, or went back to what I was doing.
Okay, when you said you pulled out your millimeter, took your 9mm, looked at it, and you put it away, what does put it away mean?
Put it away means I set it where I have it, and I put it in my bedtime. I don't know. And I put it in my dresser. I had set it in my top dresser drawer.
Now, when you set it in your top dresser drawer, did you put it in a lockbox? What did you do?
No, I left it out with. Yeah, I left it out. Let's say out, left it in just my dresser drawer.
Okay, do you normally keep it in a lockbox?
We will if we're not doing, if we have no plans for it, we will. Just to make sure my children don't put their hands on it and get all out of it.
Okay. But you didn't have any plans for it until the weekend, correct?
Correct.
Okay, is there a reason you didn't put it in a lockbox?
Because the children who had to worry about it weren't around about it.
So they weren't gonna be home for the rest of the
No,
weekend?
they were, it's not what I'm saying. They weren't around, meaning they weren't in my room.
Okay.
They were off,
Sure,
they were off my,
but you were preparing to go to work, correct?
yeah, which would have been at that point in time. At that point in time, being prepared for work, I'm still got at least 4 hours, maybe 4 hours. I'm not sure the time, but I think I got a few hours before I have to leave.
You didn't intentionally get those guns out and take a look at it because you were expecting a fight, were you?
No,
You weren't expecting an uncle to show up?
expecting, no, but probable cause, they probably would have.
Okay, and because there was some, what you said were threats, where these boys said that their uncle was gonna come, correct?
Yes, sir.
And actually, you testified in direct examination that you took that as he was gonna come and cause some issues, correct?
Yes, sir.
And it's your testimony, you went and got your guns just preparing them for the weekend, correct?
Yeah.
With no intent of confrontation.
No, no.
So that's a no?
With no intent of conversation, I got my guns out, yes.
So you were interviewed by the police regarding this incident, correct?
Yes.
Is it fair to say when the uncle came up, your demeanor wasn't that great?
Should it be?
Sir, I get to ask the question, you get to answer the question.
I would say no, it wasn't that great, but just say no. Just go
You
no.
were agitated.
Yes.
You were upset about how everything was going down and this issue with your daughter, correct?
Correct. Yes.
But you told the police you were trying to talk to the uncle in an adult manner, isn't that correct?
I don't see how I wasn't. I mean, yes, that's correct.
Okay. So you told the officers that you wanted to talk to the uncle in an adult manner, correct?
Trying to get to the bottom of whatever this was, yes.
And saying fuck the uncle, is that in an adult manner?
Yes,
All right.
because there was words spoken before
No,
I got to
sir,
that.
sir, question's not opposed right now. Not asked at this moment.
Understood.
The prosecutor will have an opportunity to ask you questions. Now, when Mr. Dalton pulls up in the van, I believe, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, you indicated that you had met Mr. Dalton on a prior occasion, is that correct?
We've seen each other, yes.
So you knew who he was?
I'm aware of who he was. I don't know.
Did you know he was Anthony's?
No, I'm gonna answer this the way that it
Well,
comes
he didn't
out.
answer
that.
He didn't ask the question yet.
Yeah, I'm gonna say, go
You
ahead.
gotta let him ask the question.
Did you know Mr. Dalton was Anthony's uncle?
I assumed he was his uncle because he rolled up.
All right. And again, this is the exhibit we were looking at just prior to the van pulling up. You had some exchanges as you come out of the house, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And who are you yelling at that time?
Currently speaking to me at that point in time was Alex. He told me to take my ass back in the house.
I'm sorry, you were yelling. Who was
I
yelling
was
at?
speaking to Alex. Alex had told me to take my ass back in the house.
Okay. Alex didn't indicate that he was going to harm you at all, correct?
At that point in time, no.
Okay. And he's
Correct.
mouthing on.
Yeah.
Correct, right? Being a big shot, trying to be cool, telling you to get your ass in the house, correct?
Yeah.
He didn't threaten to harm you at all, correct?
That's a very vague threat to tell someone to do something. I mean, that's kind of what that is. Take your ass back in the house. Maybe threatening.
Sir, we can go around in circles all we
I'm
want.
not
Did
going
he physically tell you he was going to harm you?
No.
Thank you. And at any point, did he do?
Harm me or say he's gonna harm me?
Say he was going to harm
Off the top of my head, I don't distinctly remember him saying that.
you? Thank you. And you were actually interviewed by the police for quite some time, over an hour, isn't that correct?
I guess so. I didn't keep track of the time.
And at no point in time did you ever indicate that Alex threatened you or threatened to harm you, kill you, or maim you, isn't that correct?
He never made the words, no.
I get he was there. I
No, he
understand.
also took action, so.
No, and I understand, the video speaks for
So
itself.
that's what, no, he didn't say the words.
Okay, he never said he was going to kill you.
Not that I distinctly remember, no.
I'm gonna fast forward this video to the 0.37 mark. That's you standing there walking towards the van, isn't that correct?
Yes.
But I did have to stick with it. Oh, yeah! You like me, bro? Oh, you like me, bro? You said it, what the fuck? It was on you. What the fuck you mean?
Is that when you first saw the gun, when he raised it?
Nope, when I first saw the gun was on the backside of the car, he was coming around like
Okay.
this.
Fair enough. And that's when you indicated, I believe that, oh shit, you're.
Pretty much,
They're
yes.
pretty much in trouble. And he raised the gun, correct?
Right there, yes.
Toward you. And actually, he doesn't shoot at that point, correct?
Nope.
But you do, it sounds to me you have some pretty good training because you indicated that you wanted to close the distance in so you could grab the gun, correct?
Yes.
And that was an intentional act by you.
Yes.
Now, when you lunge forward, isn't it true that the gun actually isn't pointing up towards you anymore?
Both.
Okay, let's look at the video. Right there. Did you see the gun is actually being dropped down when you lunge at him? Isn't that correct?
And from the video shows, yeah.
All right. And Could you see the video when the gun actually went off?
Can I see the video?
Yeah, can you
Yeah.
see it?
I just moved the gun from my head.
You really coming from? You really finna do this? You really finna? You really coming from?
Saw
Really
the gun
finna do?
go off, correct? Isn't it true that the gun was up and over someone's head when it?
Yes, because
actually
I
went
pushed
off?
it up in the air. The reason the gun went
No,
off. 'cause
sir, the prosecutor will have an opportunity to ask you questions. And then there's this struggle that occurs with you.
Dad told me to go. Go
Who
to
else is it?
That thing went on my.
Hold on, you don't go that big, bro. Yeah, get the fuck out of here, yo.
And during this whole time, Alex is kind of a bystander, correct?
Yeah.
Can you hear whether or not Alex says anything?
At this point in time, no, but like I said, I wasn't sure who was saying, hand me the gun, give me the gun, because somebody is screaming that I don't know.
And I can appreciate that. You can't say it was Alex. though, correct?
Not 100%, but that's who I assumed was saying it, but I didn't say that because I don't know 100%.
And that's an assumption.
Yeah, that's
correct?
why I say I don't know, that's why I didn't say.
Okay. And why are you assuming that?
Because of body positioning and where we were from what I'm hearing and what I saw.
Okay.
At this point in time, my ear, I hear screaming, hand me the gun. Hand me the gun, toss me the gun. What I'm trying to identify is who the hell is going to get the gun, so that's who I gotta go fight next.
Okay, but you don't know why that person is saying hand me the gun, correct?
I don't care why they're saying hand me the gun.
You're right. It could be for other reasons, like now you're in a struggle. We don't want anybody to get actually shot. Give me the gun and get it out of there,
It
correct?
could be that, or it
Your
could
Honor,
be
I'm
hand me
gonna
the
object to
gun.
that question and
Cause speculation.
speculation.
You don't have to answer that question.
Okay.
I'm sustaining the objection.
Thank you.
You have no, you don't know why somebody's asking you to grab the gun, correct?
I wouldn't know, but I can make an
You-
assumption,
Okay,
and that's what that all is. That's all
pretty
that is.
much a lot of stuff you're testifying to is assumption.
No, it's not.
You really finna do this?
Now, when
Dad told me to go.
second time, correct?
Go to me. Hold on, you don't go that big, bro. Yeah, get the fuck out of here, yo.
And again, during that whole fray, Alex is off to the side, correct?
Yes.
And you can see his demeanor, right? He seems kind of timid, like he doesn't want to get involved.
Your Honor, I'm gonna object to that as well. That
Okay.
also calls for speculation.
I'll rephrase it. How do you perceive Alex's posture
I'm looking
during
for a spot to get in. I'm in the middle of, I'm gonna state this as clearly as I can. I'm in the middle of a fight. Everyone down there wants me harmed. I don't give a damn what they're thinking. I know what's happening, and what's happening is I'm being assaulted. Alex is there with them. What he's thinking, I can't say.
That's right.
What it looks like to me is he's waiting for an opportunity.
Okay, that would be speculation, right?
So you
Well,
asked
we
me, so
can
that's
see
what
the
I'm saying.
video.
I'm not speculating.
You
I'm
can watch the video if you scroll back.
Don't do that, bitch. Move your.
Okay, the gun goes off at that point, correct?
Mhm.
What does
Is
Alex
that a
do?
yes?
He runs. Yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry. you're-
Yes.
What does Alex do?
He runs away.
Bitch, let it go. Let it go. Let it go.
He totally leaves the
He-
scene of the,
he-
sir, let me finish. Let me finish.
Sorry.
I know this is stressful for you, but let me finish. He totally leaves the scene of the camera, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, at this point in time, if you can recall, is the clip still in the gun?
Yes, because I haven't started getting hit in the side of the head. Yes, it's still in there.
Okay. And I believe it's your testimony, you spot the release button, and
Yes.
you're the one who released that.
Yes.
I got it. Come on. Bitch, let it go.
Who's swinging at you at that point?
That would be Marion.
Do you know if he has anything in his hands?
Not that I'm aware of.
Bitch, let the fuck go. Fuck wrong with you, boy?
Did you see Miriam bend over?
Yes.
Do you recall what he was bending, what he was doing?
Picking up the magazine, I pulled out the weapon.
Okay, that's the magazine that
Yes.
you flipped out of the. Now, I believe we saw a still shot of this portion of the video. Do you recall that?
Yes,
And that's where, is it Mr. Dalton's pointing the gun at you?
yes.
And he doesn't have a clip in that gun, correct?
No.
And you do, as you turn, you see him pointing the gun at you, correct?
I'm not even paying attention to him. I was actually completely unaware of the third shot. I was completely unaware that portion was happening. My goal was to get in the house. I went tunnel vision and wasn't paying attention.
Okay, so let me kind of develop that a little bit more. So as you're running into the house, you're not paying attention.
When I say pay attention means my goal isn't to watch him because I know what I've already done. I was able to that.
And thank you, and I can appreciate that. So now I want to know what you saw as you're running into the house.
Me running my ass in the house, I stopped. This may be hard to understand, but when I say I stopped paying attention to them, the goal is now to save my family.
I get that.
So I'm not paying attention. When I say that, I'm not looking around and trying to spot, well, he's got the gun. I didn't give a damn about him.
And
My goal was to get away and get the means to defend myself.
And I can totally appreciate that, sir. All I want to know is what you saw. Can you tell me what you saw as you're running into the house?
I
Turner.
saw,
I'm gonna object. He's already answered
No,
multiple times. He's already said that he didn't see.
No, he said he didn't pay attention and that it was in a thing, but what he was trying to describe what he thought was what I was asking. I'm just asking him what he saw. If he wants to say that I didn't see anything, that's fine. But he really hasn't answered the question. He tiptoed around.
Okay, I thought he answered it, but I'll allow him to answer it one more time.
Okay.
okay,
As you're going into the house, and I get it, it's a lot of pressure. I know you're just trying to get away. What did you actually see?
going into my home, getting up off the ground. I saw Dalton on the ground, still with the gun in his hand. My brain, get in the house and grab yours. Paying attention to anything else did not matter.
So as you're running in the house, you don't see Dalton pointing the gun at you.
I said that already. I literally said that. No, I did not see him pointing the gun at me.
Okay,
My goal was to get in the house. So I was not staring them down.
all right. So as you enter the house, you have no idea what Dalton is doing with that gun, correct?
Nope,
And that's when you go and you retrieve your gun, correct?
correct.
You don't, did you tell the family members, everybody go through the back door,
Nope.
let's get in a safe spot?
No,
So you go in and you retrieve your gun in matters of seconds, correct?
yes, I would assume.
Now I'm at the 137 mark of the exhibit. And right there, you don't see this, correct? Because you're in the house.
Correct.
At what point of this video, because I wasn't there and you're in the house, at what point in this video do you start to see what's going on outside as you're coming back after retrieving your gun?
Continue. Because at this point, I'm still in my bedroom and I'm not looking out my window.
Well, here shots are being fired, so it's gonna be before that, correct?
Yep. It was after he reloaded. I'm assuming because I seen, looking at the video, after he does this,
Oh, okay, but let me ask you this. You didn't go in and watch the video inside the house?
no,
right?
I would,
Okay, and I'm just trying to clear things up. So when you say after you're guessing on this because you saw the video afterwards and you're trying to place what has occurred, correct?
what I'm placing is my body to where they were.
Okay,
So I'm trying to look at time.
all right.
So I
So,
have to assume where they are, because you're asking me questions about what I can and can't see. I can't see through a wall.
right.
So I have to assume, looking at this, I have to assume where they are and where I am inside my home,
All right.
from the questions you're asking.
Okay, fair enough. Well, right here, the door is still closing from you walking in, correct? You
Yes.
see your storm door? So you didn't see that because your back's behind them, correct?
I'm turning, yeah. I'm going into my room, back turn to the door.
It's fair to say that as you're retrieving your gun, if that door is still closing, your back's to that door. So
Yes.
you're not seeing anything outside, correct? Do you recall this part? Could you see it at this point? Do you have your gun at this point?
I don't see him cocked, but I do see him after that with the gun over like this.
Okay. Well, we see some movement right about there. Actually, it looks like a gunshot going through the window. Isn't that correct? The storm door?
Could be.
Okay. And right there, Mr. Dalton isn't pointing the gun at the house. Isn't that correct?
Nope, he's reloading.
And well, you're speculating, right? You don't know if he's reloading.
Your Honor,
I'm gonna.
Wait, there's an objection. Let's say objection and then he'll know that you're objecting.
Objection, calls for speculation. He's asking him to view the video, tell us what's going on in the video, and then also tell him what's going on at the same time. If he wants to ask him the questions about what he remembers, he can ask that without using the video.
I would agree that this is a bit confusing because you're showing him a video and asking what was going on then versus asking him what he remembers. And so if we're gonna go off the video, we're gonna off the video. I mean, the video is gonna speak for itself anyways. But if you're asking him for his recollection, I think it would make more sense to ask him for his recollection so it won't get confusing.
That's fair enough.
Thank you.
When you've seen the video, correct?
Yes.
At no point in time when you start shooting out that window, Mr. Dalton is pointing the gun at the house. Isn't that correct?
From the first shot to what point? We're talking about here when he's ducking
Yeah,
out?
right here.
He's ducking
When
out.
you start shooting.
When I start shooting the gun,
Take your time.
when I initiated my shooting, to what it looked like to me, his gun was still pointed in the direction of my home. So from the first shot.
All right, thank you, sir. But you would agree that that video doesn't show that the gun is pointing at the house.
I
correct?
would disagree with that. What it doesn't show him standing there this. It doesn't show him taking it direct at my home.
No.
What
Isn't
it
it-
shows him doing this.
That's right, looking down at the,
I don't get.
he's looking down, correct? He's not looking at the house.
I
nor
could
is
give
he
a
pointing-
fuck less. He pointed a goddamn gun and he tried to shoot me. Where he's looking at don't fucking matter. It doesn't matter. He tried to shoot me more than once. He reloaded his weapon in front of my home. I don't get the questioning you're trying to get with.
All you have to do is answer the question.
I did
Not
answer
try
the
to-
question.
not
You're
try
trying to-
determine what my question is. My question is, isn't it true that the video doesn't show him pointing the
He
gun at the
answered
house?
that. He disagrees.
And during your time of firing at Mr. Dalton, at no time does Mr. Dalton return fire, isn't that correct?
Correct.
Matter of fact, he's in retreat mode, isn't that correct?
And I would object, call for
Okay.
speculation.
Fine. Fair enough, I'll rephrase
Objection
that.
sustained.
Thank you.
During the time that you're shooting the gun, Mr. Dalton is running away, isn't that correct?
Yes.
And during this whole time of the gun exchange, Mr. Church is not around, correct?
And the shots firing. I would have to say he fled when I started shooting like everybody else tried to.
Okay. And you never heard Mr. Church indicate that he wanted anybody to shoot you, correct?
Not that I can distinctly place to him. No.
Thank you. And again, when you were interviewed by the police for over an hour, you never indicated to the police that Mr. Church instructed anybody to shoot you or participated in the actual shooting, correct?
He never told anyone to shoot me. No, he never pulled the trigger on a gun, if that's what you're asking. But participating in the shooting, he was there and I was shot at. So that technically, him being part of the crowd makes him participate in that shooting.
Well, I'd ask the court to strike that. That draws up for a legal conclusion. It's this witness has.
I'll strike that.
You testified that you heard someone yell out about getting the other gun, correct?
Yes.
You never saw a second gun.
No, sir.
I have no further question.
Mr. Conway, I was trying to see if Callaway, right?
Callaway.
I always want to go, well, so, I'm gonna try to see if I get through this without having to go through the video again, but there will be some details, and just let me know if you can't remember if we need to show the video. Couple of things first, just so that I understand correctly. From the events of that day, you were, without saying what the text said, you were made aware of some text by your daughter.
Yes.
These were of the nature that upset you.
Yes.
They upset your daughter.
Yes.
Made you angry.
Yes.
You wanted to go solve the matter.
Not the way that sounds, but yes.
What do you mean by the way that sounds?
The way you implied it, then I went down there and took somebody's ass or something. That's how I answered. What you meant? No, but I did want to solve the situation.
Oh, that's
I was not
interesting.
trying to seek violence, but I was trying to resolve.
It's actually not what I was asking, but since you bring it up, sir,
Mhm.
you are the one that went to the home where you believe that Alex and Anthony were.
Yes.
You did not speak with them yourself prior to going to that home.
No.
You were going there with the intent to what,
Speak with
talk to
Anthony-
them,
Speak with Anthony's father.
speak with Anthony's father.
Yes.
Do you know Anthony's father?
Well enough that I believe we could have a conversation about his son threatening my daughter.
So you've had conversations with his
Yeah, we've
father
spoken before. We had run-ins before. But, his, I believe, his younger son and my son
You've
had a
had,
conversation before and we talked about it.
okay, so you've had an altercation with Anthony's father before.
No, I wouldn't put it that way.
You had an argument with his father before?
So I disagree. I mean, it's
I think he
children.
just testified to what happened. He didn't use our altercation.
It was
He said that
children.
his
I know,
son-
that's why I'm trying, we all have
The
different.
sons had
interpret-
altercations.
I'm trying to define what his interpretation of altercation
Well, he
is.
said he talked it out.
Okay, but that could also include an argument, Your Honor. It's cross-examination. If the court could just allow me a little bit of latitude so I can clarify to make sure.
No, there's no argument to be had. It was his son
Okay,
had done something to my daughter. My son tried to retaliate. It was basically trying to bring an end to neighborhood drama so the kids can
So
play.
you're saying that you were going down there with peaceful intentions.
At that point in time, yeah. I mean, there was, while I was being up, even though I was upset, it wasn't to the point where I wanted to harm. This is stupid.
Okay,
That's talking, basically, this situation in which your son put himself in, talk to him and get him out of it because it has nothing to do with him. Basically, I was going down there to speak with dad to try to get his son out of the situation because
okay, that's fine. You've answered the question sufficiently. So the video where we picked up from today at Exhibit 1 shows Anthony and Alex at your front door, right?
yes,
At that point, you're already yelling with them, aren't you?
no,
You're not yelling with them at that
no,
point?
not off rip. I did not even start yelling at him. I did not.
Were you intending to be peaceful with them at that
As
time?
peaceful as I could. I mean, like I said, that I live on the block, with them,
Okay.
live in the same neighborhood. It is better to coexist peacefully than try to be at war with each other. That was my goal.
Sir, if you could just answer the question itself, because this is gonna go a long time and I'm not trying to get your answers stricken as non-responsive, okay? You'd agree that this video is more accurate than your memory, showing exactly
Yes.
what was done by whom, correct?
Yes.
You claim that Marion did or said anything that's not captured on the video?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. You'd agree that there were two occupants in that gold colored Cadillac van
Yes.
crossover when it arrived, correct?
Yes.
You initially told police that there were three occupants in that vehicle, didn't you? Recall giving a statement to a female officer from Lansing Police by the name of Brianna Wright.
Remember talking to an officer, don't distinctly remember the name. So that's the name that took down the statement, and that's what's supposed to.
And isn't it true that you stated to Officer Wright that three occupants exit the vehicle, one driver, one front passenger, and one rear passenger? Isn't that what you told her?
Possibly.
Okay.
Can't
So
disagree
fair
with
to
that.
say the moment your adrenaline rushing, you may have gotten some pain, right?
The fact that there are three people in the car, that's what I said, and I got that wrong.
And you, exactly. So the point of this is the video is more accurate than what your beliefs are.
Yeah.
You've had the opportunity to watch the video many times prior to today, right?
Yeah.
And you've done so in preparation for your testimony, right?
No.
You have not viewed the video at all prior to today?
You asked if I viewed it in preparation for the case. The answer is no.
When is the last time you viewed any of the surveillance video from that day? Prior to, obviously, you being in the hearing today.
Marchish, I don't know. I don't sit down and go over it.
So you agree that you testified and referred to some things that would be able to be seen in the video, and you're saying that that's based upon your memory from last seeing the video 2 months ago?
I'm
Or more.
testifying to the video. Yes. My memory, I'm testifying to the fact that I remember the incident as best as I can.
Okay. Now, you'd agree when that gold vehicle first pulls up that you walk off your porch fairly quickly at first and then walk slowly up towards that vehicle.
I'm going to just answer yes because yeah.
Okay, and obviously the video speaks for itself, right? But you came up to that vehicle.
And up to the approached it, yes.
As the occupants were still inside that vehicle.
Yes.
And Dalton was the driver.
Yes.
And Morion, who you have identified as Morion, was the the front passenger.
Yes.
Dalton gets out of the car and comes around the car, and that's when you see him after that, right?
Yes.
And then you're going to struggle with Dalton at that point, right? Yes.
Yes.
Gun goes off during that point, right?
Yes.
At that point, Marion is not involved in any way as far as physically doing anything to punch, strike, push in any way at that point, is he?
At that point, no.
You would agree he did not say anything during that point either by the time that first shot went off. Is that correct?
I would agree with that, yes.
He's standing back, right?
I would agree with that, yes.
Others get involved. At least one of the others, I believe, was in the gold hoodie, though, right?
Yes.
You'd agree at that point, still over by the car in this struggle, Marion still does not put hands on anyone at that point.
I would agree to that, yes.
Where is the first point you believe you heard, without saying what he said, where's the first time you believe you heard Marion say anything that would be construed as encouraging somebody or instigating or anything like that? Where, at any point, when you recall the first time he would have said something, where the action took place when that?
By instigating, do you mean like, and them trying to say,
I'm gonna
give
leave
him
it open.
attack, charge, basically, that's what I'm trying to say.
Well,
Like, I need
let's,
to,
I'll rephrase it then. When's the first time you heard Morion say anything? Without saying what it was, and then we can say where he was when he said it.
I believe it was the struggle while we were on the ground.
On the ground in front of the porch.
I believe so.
And that's first time, to your recollection,
That I heard
hearing
him say
this
anything.
individual,
Yes.
my client Morion, speak. Okay. And at that point, you had made mention earlier about, concerns about there being another gun or get the gun, something of that effect, right?
Yes.
I'm a little unclear because I believe you've indicated that two different people said that statement. I believe you said earlier when the prosecutor was asking those questions that Morion said that. But then I believe that you claimed to Mr. Carter that it was Alex that said that. Who is it that actually said anything about get the gun?
While I was on the ground, is that, 'cause I'm trying to make sure we're same spot. We're talking about tussle on the ground when I
Correct.
start hearing that.
At the time,
While I was basically at the front of the house, while I was struggling on the ground. It was.
is it fair to say you're not sure?
That would be fair to say at this point, because I'm trying,
And again-
trying to scratch through all this. It's a,
It happened very quickly, you said, right? You're spinning around on the ground, trying to remember who was where, right?
correct.
You even told the officers that there was 3 people who came out of the car, when in fact it was 2, so you may have gotten some things wrong.
Possibly, yes.
So you don't know for certain what words Morion spoke.
The certainty that I have of him saying, get the other gun, grab the other gun, would be on the backside of the car while he was scurrying around with what appears to be trying to get to the car. But that's not at the point, so at the point of the tussle on the ground, I can't distinctly say what's on that.
Okay,
No.
okay, we'll get to that part in a second. So as to the altercation being on the ground when you're there with struggling, you can't say for certainty any words spoken.
My
by
back
Morion.
was to him, yeah, so I don't know distinctly if it was.
And you'd agree at that point, when you're on the ground, you physically have your hands on the gun and you're trying to,
At that point in time, yes.
and you're trying to get the slide out and the magazine out and everything like that, right?
Yes.
You have your hands on the gun as well as Dalton has his hands on the gun, right?
Yeah, yes.
See in the video, isn't it accurate that Morion reaches down with both hands in a scene pulling before making any strike? Isn't that accurate?
Yes.
He was trying to pull the weapon out of the equation, was he not?
No, he was trying to pull me off of his dad.
So you're saying when he's down there reaching,
Yes.
we can't see on the camera angle what he's actually holding, can we?
You can't see it, but I can.
And so you're claiming that he was grabbing you instead of the gun.
I'm not claiming that's what happened.
When you say you remove, I want to be sure, were the rounds emptied from the magazine clip as well as the magazine removed itself, or something different? I want to make sure we understood that correctly.
Clarify, please, because are you asking me what, like, how was the magazine oriented? I'm not.
Well, when you got the magazine out of the gun, were there rounds still in that
Yes.
magazine, or are you able to
No,
get?
there was
the
still rounds in the magazine.
Okay, well, Are you assuming you don't know how many rounds were
I
actually in?
couldn't tell you how many were.
Okay, so you're assuming there was more rounds in there. And I want to make sure what we're clear.
Yes,
All you're saying really is you were not able to get bullets out of a magazine. That's what you really said, right?
pretty much.
And so while you're still holding on to this gun, shots have already been fired at least twice, right?
Is that a yes?
Yes,
And Marion is reaching down with both hands trying to pull, whether it be you or the gun or something. He's trying to pull it first, right?
yes,
And then he screams, "Let go," doesn't he?
yeah, he's saying let it go, let it the fuck go.
And you had your hands on the gun at that time, right?
Yes,
And the strike that you said he has struck you, I believe you said on your left temple, that was after saying let go, and then you were not letting go of the gun at that point, right?
yes,
Okay. Marion ever use any profanity towards you, call you names, anything like that during this time?
nothing I can distinctly remember.
Never told anybody else to do anything to you?
I don't think he did know.
Once you got up, he never followed you?
No,
You never saw any other gun other than the one that you were struggling with that was in Dalton's possession, and then the one you went and got out of your room. You never saw any other gun.
that's correct. No.
You opened fire after going into your home and coming back out to shoot, right? We've already established that.
Yes,
As a matter of fact, you shoot through the screen door, right?
yes,
And I don't want to have to play the video on this, but isn't it fair to say that it was only about 4 to 5 seconds from the time you went into the home to the time you were shooting out the front door?
I thought it was longer than that, but I could say roughly.
The
it's
video
about time.
speak for itself.
Yeah,
right?
I say this is about time.
And you maintain that your testimony, well, you maintain that despite that limited amount of time, that your gun was put away in a dresser drawer and you were not prepared for a confrontation.
Correct.
In less than 5 seconds, you were able to retrieve it and be firing away that fast.
Correct.
And at that time, you're continuing to shoot. Marion goes around the backside of this Cadillac, and he's no longer within range or direct, open fire, I guess you would say. I don't want you to speculate he's behind cover, but if he was getting behind something to cover up, the Cadillac was able to provide that for him, wasn't it?
Yes, he ran behind the car.
Okay, thank you. That was a much better way to say it. Went and ran behind the car. And his dad was lying out middle of the street, face down.
Don't know. Couldn't see him.
You're just firing away at that point, right?
Nope.
And at this moment, you're emptying clips, right?
By the way that's worded, no, because I'm not going to agree with that term. It's not just sitting there emptying clips.
Okay, let me rephrase it then. Did you just keep firing until you couldn't fire anymore?
No, that is not the purpose, and that's not what I was doing.
Okay. Did you fire all the bullets out of the gun?
Yes, I did.
Okay, so you emptied the clip.
Yes.
Okay. Did you put another clip in and continue to shoot after that?
After I heard someone saying grab the other gun, yes.
So you're saying is you stopped, you heard someone say
Grab the other gun.
other gun.
Yes.
You heard the word other.
Yes.
And that's
I
gonna be
other.
heard in the video.
This video, it should.
So you're saying it should. Why do you pause to say it should?
Because I didn't study the video like you asked me to if I did earlier. That's why I say it should.
Okay, and if it doesn't, maybe you misremembered. Is that
That could
correct?
be.
Okay. Frankly, you were scared for your life, right?
Yes.
So it's true that you've already established you may have gotten something wrong.
May have.
You don't know whether referring to getting the gun for protection as they're being shot at potentially.
And I would object.
Wouldn't that make them
Okay,
a
that's
There's
threat?
an objection.
I'll withdraw the question.
Thank you.
She's right. And and at that time, when you are doing that shooting, Marion puts his hands up to show you that he does not have a weapon, right?
Correct. Which is why he didn't get shot.
And he made no threatening gestures to you
After that.
from the time you went back in the house to the time to any other time thereafter.
Define threatening action after being assaulted.
Well, you can answer yes or no, and then if you believe yes, you can explain.
I would say yes, because they were still in front of my house.
Okay, just by his mere presence being there.
The fact, his mere presence being there
Was
isn't what
threatening
got-
to you.
his mere presence being there wasn't a threat until after
Okay,
his father tried to shoot him.
got it.
That's when everything and everybody who was involved became and stayed a threat as long as they were in front of my
Everybody
home.
became the enemy at that point because it's you against them, right?
Your Honor, objection,
That's a fair question. I don't even know what the objection
What
would
is
be.
the
Your Honor.
objection?
argumentative.
It's cross-examination.
Cross-examination means you can be argumentative.
Absolutely. By its very nature, the case law says, by its very nature, it tends to be argumentative. There's different latitude. It's a fair question as to whether or not they all became the enemy at this point. In his mind, it's presence and suppression of what he's doing.
They all became, I'm gonna sustain the objection. Move
Thank you.
on.
You feared that they were all out to get you.
They all showed up together, yes.
And you don't know anything about Marion's whereabouts prior to the moment of arriving.
Just prior to the moment of arriving.
At your home, you don't know where his whereabouts earlier that day.
No clue who I
Okay.
was
He
unaware of
a
his existence
passenger
until then.
in a vehicle.
Yeah.
I have no further questions.
To have it.
Good morning.
This morning.
I represent Dalton Moore. My name is John Abbott. So I'll try not to reiterate everything that you've already been asked. But I recall you testified that Dalton came around, and we saw in the video that Dalton came around the back of the car and pointed that gun right at your head.
Yes.
And he was only inches away from you. Correct?
Yeah, I would say the gun.
Gun was.
Oh, all right. Well, when I speak of certain things of distances, I'm speaking like body to body. So
Okay.
our bodies were roughly 3 so feet, but the gun was practically inches from my head. So
The gun was inches from your head. It could have killed you right there. Could you just squeeze the
did
trigger?
he to pull the trigger? Yeah.
Okay. And then also your testimony a moment ago was the gun started to come down, and then that's when you made your grab for the gun.
I made my grab for the gun when I thought it was safe to make such a move.
Right. And that
So-
was after he was not pointing it at your forehead.
I would assume so, because my termination, once the gun was pointed at me, it was pointed at me, regardless of upper down.
Okay. But there's a distinction there between when it's pointed
Yes.
at your head and you
So it was
thought,
downward.
I'm not gonna do anything, and then he moved it away from your head and you went, you attacked it.
I wouldn't call that attack. I would call that self-defense.
Okay, you defended. You chose to initiate. the
I
fight.
chose to defend myself. He initiated when he pulled the gun.
Okay. But you waited till he was not pointing it at your head.
That would be the smartest time to stop someone from
Is
trying
that
to
a
harm me.
yes or a no?
Yes.
And then we saw the gun went off when it was,
Moved
up.
from my head, yes.
and then there was a round that was fired while everyone was on the ground.
Yes.
And and before this happened, you had just read this text message your daughter received?
A few minutes
Just
before,
few
yeah.
minutes before, you were still pretty amped up about how angry you were. You were in the street shouting.
As angry as you guys are trying to make it sound, I was not that. I was angry enough to, I guess the best way to do it is like, I'm feeling like they're trying to paint me as if I just ran out there and started trying to kick everybody's ass to threaten my daughter, which is untrue. And I don't like the way you guys keep
All
trying to
right,
paint me.
well,
that way.
let's sort of, I'll try to be less provocative. But you were out in the street.
Arguing
really
with people,
going-
arguing with me, yes.
And you were screaming at them, and you were swearing.
Yes.
Okay. And you were really mad about with your text message from them to your daughter?
I would say, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay. And so you're in this fight, which is definitely a struggle, a life and death struggle. Once the two of you are grappling, is that a fair characterization?
Yes.
Because either one of you could have got shot.
Yes.
And at some point, the fight ends. The gun is disassembled, the bullets come out, and then it stops. The wrestling kind of stops at that, right?
The physical altercation between us ended, yes.
Okay, and then at this point, you get up and start running for the house, right?
Yes.
And you said during your testimony that at this point, you don't care what they're thinking,
No, I don't.
and you don't care what they're doing.
No, I didn't.
Okay, and you have tunnel vision.
To get in my home, yes.
Get into your home. But you weren't going into your home just to get safe. You were going into the home to get the gun, right?
I was going in my home to defend my home, yes.
Okay. And as far as that gun goes, you mentioned that you had gathered up some shooting equipment earlier,
Yes.
and that you gathered that shooting equipment because you were headed to go to your wife's family's place on
In
Sunday.
preparation for a slow trip we're taking, yes.
And that was, you described it as hunting weapons,
Yes.
but
Well-
that's what you said.
I believe what I said is they are used for hunting. I hunt, my family hunt, but those two particular weapons, the 22 rifle, like I said, just got the 9mm was more for home defense plus.
Okay. And you said the 9mm home defense weapon had nothing to do with the trip for Sunday?
No, we're going to go shoot that off to put some rounds because we both need to get from there and shoot.
Okay, and this happened on the 29th of December,
Yes.
2021? And that's a Wednesday,
I thought it was later in the week than that, but then,
but so you're preparing to go shooting on Sunday by getting your guns out on Wednesday? Is that what your testimony is?
yeah.
Okay. So let's go back to you getting up off the ground and you're running in the house and you've got tunnel vision, right? You don't care what they're doing and you don't care what they're thinking. Am I correct so far?
I already stated that, yes.
Okay. And then, if you watch the video, Dalton and his son are walking away from the house, right?
No,
Okay, so you stuck your gun out the door and started firing. Right? You stuck the gun out the door and started shooting.
I fired from the interior of my home first because Dalton still had the gun angled in the way that I
It's
received.
a
it
yes or
from
no
the house.
question.
It's
Did
not a
you-
yes or no question.
It is a yes or no question to the extent you can answer it, sir.
Did you stick your pistol out the window of the door and start shooting him?
Yes,
And you shot him in the back several times, right?
I don't know.
You don't know if you
No.
shot him in the back?
I don't. I haven't had a confirmation of him being shot until I don't know how long it was until that, and they never told me where he was shot.
Okay,
They just told me he was shot. I didn't. I just found out he was shot in the back today.
okay. And so when you were shooting, you didn't notice he was facing away from you?
I noticed that he had a gun in his hand. I
Really?
noticed that he tried to shoot me.
Could you see that gun from where you were standing when you were shooting?
Yes, yes, I could. That's why he still had the gun. That's why he was the one being fired at, not everyone else.
All right. But you don't remember that he was facing away from you?
What I remember seeing is him having the gun up, me firing at him, and him moving away from him.
Okay. So it's your testimony that when you fired the gun, he was currently threatening your house. The moment you started firing.
I would say that, yes.
But at the same time, your testimony is you didn't care what they were thinking and you didn't care what they were doing.
I didn't know I was supposed to, but no.
Okay. And you had made the decision to go get that gun as soon as you got up off the ground, right?
I made the decision to grab my gun when I got to a fight for my life.
So you had already made the choice.
To go grab my gun, that I would need to get them away from my home if they didn't leave on their own, yeah.
If, so you'd already. Sorry. But as it turned out, he never actually shot you, right?
No,
even though he had clear opportunity to shoot you when he walked around the back of that car.
You asking me to speculate on what he was thinking. I don't give a damn.
No,
what
I'm
he was
asking
thinking.
you as a
He
person.
came with the gun.
He came with a gun, he pointed it right at you.
Because
Right.
he didn't pull the trigger, I'm supposed to go say,
No, I'm just asking. He pointed it right at you.
yes,
He did not pull the trigger.
no.
Okay. And as you were getting up off the ground and running back in the house, he pointed it right at you again, right?
Hmm.
And he
Is
did
that a
not,
yes?
Yes, sir.
and he did not fire the gun.
A round did not come out the gun, he pulled the trigger. So technically he fired the weapon.
So just a second. A moment ago, you said you couldn't tell what they were thinking, you didn't know what they were doing, you weren't paying attention to anything, you couldn't hear anything, you had tunnel vision, and yet you hear it.
Did we just watch the video?
Yeah.
That's what I saw. Now are you asking me without the video evidence? No, I didn't see him do that.
Okay.
But on video, you clearly see him go and pull the trigger.
But you didn't shoot it, right?
A round didn't come out the gun.
Well, okay.
Oh, he's
There's
answered
a
that question.
distinction without a difference there.
There is a
I'll-
difference
I'll-
because
Well,
shooting-
if he did shoot, if you shoot and the round doesn't come out, that is shooting. It's just the
All right.
round didn't come out. I think he said that
He
3
made the
times
attempt to
already.
shoot him by
So
pulling the
let's
trigger.
move on beyond that question.
So moments before that, you had removed the bullets from the gun. True?
Yes,
And you got up and you were running into the house and you were not watching him.
no.
So you don't know whether he put any bullets in it or not.
Without the video, I'm unaware of that. Correct,
And at the time, you didn't know if he had bullets or not.
correct. I didn't know if he reloaded or not, no.
And at the time you were running in the house, you didn't hear the gun go off.
Not at the time, no.
And by the time you got back out to the door to point the gun out the door, they were walking away from the house, right?
Nope. When I stopped, there were two distinct points in when I shot. Inside and outside, which are you referring to? Because the first shot I fired was from the front inside my home, blowing out my glass. He's still in front of my house. When y'all see him duck turning like that, I'm firing again, and then you see my hands come up.
Okay,
So no point I really, like, as I'm shooting at him, I'm shooting at him. Him turning, it didn't register in my brain. He still had a fucking gun in his hand.
nothing further.
Okay. That's a 5-minute break before you be there.
Okay.
seated. Okay, Mr. Howard, you're still under oath. You can proceed with your redirect.
Thank you.
I'm not, oh, she's not on the record. I'm ready. Okay.
Okay. Howdy, I'm gonna try to go in order again. With regards to Mr. Church, so you had indicated on cross that he had never said anything specific about threatening you, correct?
Correct.
But he had said, take your ass back in house at some point, correct?
Yes,
And you perceive that as a threat?
yes.
Okay. And when you were asked about, the manner in which you approached Mr. Moore's vehicle, we see it on the video. You're trying to have a conversation with him, correct?
Yeah,
And he does ask you what you said, and you tell him what you said.
yes,
Okay, and that's when he proceeds to get out of the vehicle.
yes.
But you weren't intending to start an argument or anything like that, correct?
Objection leading.
Were you intending at that point to start an argument?
No,
Okay. Objection sustained.
Now, one of the attorneys asked you about how quickly you were able to get to your weapon. You indicated that the weapon that you used was in your bedroom, correct?
Yeah.
Where's your bedroom located in relation to your front door?
full adult step, maybe a step and a half inside of it.
Okay, so it's directly inside that door.
Well, let's see. Well, yeah, basically, like once you open my front door, it's like a 2-foot gap between where the front door is and the very front door, the opening and the opening of my bedroom, is maybe a foot and a half.
So
It's fairly close to my front door. Like my bedroom is like right off my front door.
okay. So it's very quick to get into your bedroom.
Yes.
And then when you went to go get that gun, what was your intent for that gun?
If they were still in front of my home, use it.
Okay. And if they had been further away from your house, would you have used it?
No.
Okay. And when you got back to the front door, you had already indicated Mr. Moore was still in front of your house. And you see him with the gun, correct?
Yes.
And you remember it being still pointed towards your house.
Yes.
And again, are you the only person in your house?
No.
Okay. And at that point, you're still scared.
Yes.
And you don't know, in fact, if he's been able to reload that gun, correct?
No.
Okay. So you had no idea.
No.
And it was after you fired that Dalton Moore moved away from your house. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. But he still was in possession of that weapon.
Yes.
Okay. Did he say anything to you at that point?
No.
You still perceived him to be a threat, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And I believe Mr. Abbott asked you about screaming and swearing at Anthony and Alex while they're down the street from your house while you're going about your business. They're screaming at you still, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in fact, that's where,
They initiated the screaming.
and that's where Alex has said, get to take your ass back in the house, correct?
Yes.
And just to make sure that we're all clear, when Mr. Dalton Moore gets out of that vehicle, he already has that gun by his side, is that correct?
He has his gun in hand.
In hand, and it's already starting to point it at you while he's walking around the
As he's
vehicle.
coming around the car, I think it comes up as he gets to the backside of the car, but the passenger side of the backside of the car.
So we-
Somewhere like between the, in middle of the trunk and that part is when the gun starts coming up.
And you weren't saying anything at that time, correct?
No.
And I have no further questions.
This witness be excused.
Right.
Thank you, Mr. Garrett. You can be excused. Remember that you're under sequestration. You cannot discuss any portions of your testimony with any other witnesses.
Understand.
Thank you. You can call your next witness.
Your Honor, people don't have any other witnesses. However, I do have what's marked as plaintiff proposed exhibit number 11, we've already shown to defense counsel, which is a certified conviction for Mr. Dalton Moore. Not currently charged with an count of felon in possession of a firearm, but I'm going to ask that it be added.
Oh. Okay, any other proofs for the prosecution?
No.
Okay. And the judgment of sentence does have a seal indicating that it's certified, so that will be admitted. Is there any defense witnesses today?
None.
No, thank you.
Not on behalf of Mr. Moore.
Okay, I need you to play the video for me again.
The video of the shooting.
Is it the one not marked 5?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay. Oops, sorry. Forgot we moved forward.
Your Honor, may I sit closer to the screen?
Oh, whatever works.
Make me, bitch.
I'm sorry, did you say something? Oh.
I'm right here, still saying fuck your uncle. Fuck all 3 of you bitch made niggas. Fuck y'all. Fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you. Did I come for your nephew? No, sir, but I did have to speak to him. What the fuck you mean, bro? You really gonna come for me? You really fucking come? You really gonna do this shit? Dad, tell me to go. Go to me. No, just don't go that big, bro. Yeah, just fuck that shit, bro. Don't do that bitch. Move your. My ear. Bitch, let it go. Let it the fuck go. Let it the fuck go. Make it the person. I got it. Bitch, let it go. Bitch. Bitch. Let it the fuck go. Fuck wrong with you, boy? I think you'll have your ass inside that fucking house with you. No. Yeah. No. No! Give me the gun!
Proceed to argue.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Mr. Moore, Mr. Frank Moore, or Dalton Moore, sorry. As I think all the attorneys have tried to point out, or defense attorneys except for Mr. Abbott, maybe, Mr. Dalton Moore seems to be the most culpable in this incident, but it doesn't absolve the other 3 of their actions in this matter. All 4 of them are charged with assault with intent to murder, including Mr. Dalton Moore. I think that based on the testimony of Mr. Cowie, as well as the video that's been shown to the court, it's very clear what the intent was here on the part of Mr. Moore. He shows up at Mr. Cowie's house with a gun, and in fact proceeds to get out of the vehicle with his gun and point it directly at him. There's barely any words exchanged at this point, Your Honor, but he is ready to use that weapon. At least it looks that way, since he is pointing the weapon directly at Mr. Cowie's forehead at the time. It's also clear at this time that he was in possession of a firearm while in that vehicle. And that would pertain to the count 2. You can obviously see that he gets out of the vehicle and has that gun on him. The only logical conclusion there is that it was also in the vehicle. Count 3 is a dangerous weapon carrying with unlawful intent. I think, again, through the testimony and the video, it's very clear that that weapon was intended to be used against another person, which is, of course, an unlawful use of a weapon. And he was clearly armed with a pistol at the time of that. People are also asking that court add an added count for a felon in possession of a firearm, as Mr. Moore is in fact a convicted felon and ineligible to possess a handgun at any point after that conviction. With regards to Anthony Anderson, Xavier Church, and Marion Denwitty Moore, the theory that they are being charged with assault with intent to murder is in fact aiding and abetting. Mr. Dalton Moore with the assault with intent to murder charge. It's clear by the evidence and testimony presented to the court that all 4 of these people were present, and their mere presence isn't enough. However, all 3 of these individuals aided Mr. Moore in whatever it was he was there to do. We have testimony from Mr. Cowie that Anthony Anderson had threatened him something about calling his uncle, having his uncle come up there, and then magically his uncle appears. Pretty clear that he was called by Anthony Anderson to go there and have words with Mr. Cowie. Then, when he gets out of the vehicle, you can hear him on that video you can hear Anthony on that vehicle. Sorry, you can hear on the video somebody is telling Mr. Moore to shoot Mr. Cowie. Mr. Cowie has indicated that that was, in fact, Anthony Anderson. And I would indicate to the court that that, in and of itself, in addition to him assaulting Mr. Cowie while Mr. Cowie was attempting to disarm Mr. Moore from possessing that handgun and threatening his life, that is more than enough evidence of the aiding and abetting with which to have him bound over with assault with intent to murder. Xavier Church also was present during the original altercation. Now, he didn't say anything specifically to Mr. Cowie that Mr. Cowie can remember with regards to assaulting him or having him shot or whatever. But he did, in fact, aid in the commission of assault with intent to murder on behalf of Mr. Moore by assaulting Mr. Cowie while Mr. Cowie was trying to disarm Mr. Moore. Mr. Cowie maintains that he was actively trying to disarm Mr. Moore, resolve the situation peacefully, and Xavier Church is sitting on video punching Mr. Cowie. And he does at some point retreat, but that is only after the second fire is shot. So while the first shot is being fired, he's still in the vicinity, then starts beating up Mr. Cowie with the other 3. And there's a second shot, and he is maybe at that point done. But I would argue to the court that at least between the first and second count, he's definitely trying to help Mr. Moore with carrying out whatever it was he was there to do. Again, we were indicating to the court that he was there to commit the crime of murder had he been given the opportunity to do so. And Mr. Moore, Your Honor, did come with his dad to the altercation, gets out of the vehicle, confronts Mr. Cowie with his dad. And of course, at first, he's not participating, but once Mr. Cowie is starting to, overpower his dad or has the ability to get the weapon from Mr. Moore, had he not been being attacked by the other 3 individuals, Mr. Denwitty Moore does, in fact, hit Mr. Cowie. He does aid his father further in that when the weapon is discharged and the magazine is thrown on the ground, he picks it up and gives it back to his dad, which is when, as we can see on the video, that third shot is attempted, obviously does not go off because there's no bullet that actually exited the gun, but again, it was still attempted and it was still pointed at the victim's head, or at least in his vicinity, and could have harmed him at that point. Clear from the testimony that there was an extraordinary level of fear on the part of Mr. Cowie that they in fact were there to kill him. and that the four of them were working together in concert to do so. I would argue to the court that based on the testimony of Mr. Cowie as well as the video presented, there's more than sufficient evidence to find all four over as charged and Mr. Moore with that added count for felon in possession of a firearm. I think that once that gun was brought out and there was at least one shot gone off after the gun had been pointed directly at Mr. Cowie said, there's no question in my mind what Mr. Moore was there to do. And I don't think that any of these three can attest that they would have thought differently. What else is there that you can do with a gun pointed at someone's head? So at this time, Your Honor, I ask that they'd all be bound over as charged with the exception of Mr. Moore and the added count for a felon in possession of a firearm.
I'll go first, I guess, Your Honor. Your Honor, all due respect to the people, if someone, meaning the co-defendants, other than Dalton Moore, commit a simple assault on somebody, like hitting them in the head, that doesn't equate to assault murder. Them being present, committing a simple assault doesn't come close, even at this level, to tie them in to an assault murder charge. Yeah, I think what was clear in this case is that Dalton Moore committed a felonious assault 2 times. With that being the case, if an assault murder was not committed at even this level, the assault murder charge against my client, Mr. Anderson, has to be dismissed or reduced down to assault murder. So let's look at this case as a 2-part issue. Obviously, it's a principal aiding and abetting theory. What crime did Dalton Moore commit? Then the next question, at least for my client and the other defendants as well, is what did the other participants do to intentionally assist that crime? Regarding Dalton Moore, we know for sure he pointed the gun 2 times directly at the victim. The gun conveniently was testified to as being pointed at the victim during the struggle. Then there's a 5th time actually when the victim has said Dalton Moore was pointing a gun at the victim when the victim was in the doorway, which from the video we can tell that that's absolutely not true. That was made up, or he misunderstood what he remembered being the victim. So let's talk about when Dalton Moore first comes around the Cadillac. He points the gun directly at the victim, no question about it, points it at his head. He doesn't fire the gun. That's a felonious assault all day long. That's not assault murder. What happens is Dalton Moore lowers the gun, then the victim grabs the gun. Then there's a struggle. The gun goes off accidentally. Then there's a further struggle. The gun goes off again. And what's important to know is the victim clearly testified that he removed the magazine. He saw no bullet in the gun. He has some experience with guns. He said that the gun wasn't working at that point. He didn't care about it. Even if Dalton Moore points the gun at the victim as he's running into the house, even if Dalton clicked the gun, it's a legal impossibility to commit assault murder at that point because the gun is disengaged. If we refer to the jury instruction regarding assault murder, CJI 17.3, Dalton, he had to try to physically injure somebody. He never tried to physically injure the victim when he came around the Cadillac. He lowered the gun. Another element of assault murder, Dalton had to have the ability to cause injury. Well, at the time the victim's running into the house, Dalton, even if he does pull that trigger, which the victim conveniently says for the first time today, the gun was disengaged. It's a legal impossibility to be assault murder if that weapon doesn't work and he doesn't have the ability at that point. Again, the victim clearly stated no bullet in the gun, the magazine's out. I felt safe at that point because I knew the gun was disengaged. So it can't be assault murder there. Was it a felonious assault when the victim was running in the house? Sure. Dalton committed 2 felonious assaults. So that begs the question, what did Anthony do to intentionally assist this felonious assault? What did the other defendants do to intentionally assist a felonious assault? Well, they hit him in the head. Conveniently, the victim states, my guy says, shoot the victim out of the blue the first time today. But when he said that, Dalton never pulled the trigger, pointed it, lowered it, and the victim grabbed the gun. I'm asking the court to dismiss the assault murder charge brought against Anthony Anderson or reduce it to felonious assault. At worst case, that's all that happened based on my client, and based on what we saw. Thank you.
Do you want me?
We can go in order of your cross-examine. I mean,
Alright. Thank you, Your Honor. With all due respect, I pretty much would adopt Mr. Thomas' arguments regarding my client also. We need to understand that assault with intent to murder is a specific intent, which means that in order for my client to be guilty, meaning and aiding and abetting theory, he would have to have the specific intent also for that crime to be carried out. I don't believe we have that. The evidence suggests that. And again, Mr. Small did an excellent job of going through the video and what the video shows. This was basically a struggle with a loaded gun at the point when the gun went off 2 different times. My client participation in this series of events was merely and I don't mean it in disrespect. It was 2 or 3 punches while they were struggling on the ground. I don't believe at that point in time that's aiding and abetting any intentional crime or specific intent crime, murder. It's a felonious assault at best. It's not even on an aiding and abetting theory. It would just be a felonious assault that Mr. Church committed at that point in time. I think this case lacks the elements for my client, and even in aiding and abetting theory, that my client assisted in the specific intent of the crime of assault with intent to murder, or attempted murder in this case. No actions by my client would suggest, or even video would suggest, that my client did anything to assist in that crime that was being charged with. It's also important to understand that even the Mr. Bowie testified that he didn't hear my client encourage anything, didn't hear anything shout out by my client. As the prosecutor indicated, mere presence of a crime does not make you an aiding and abetting, especially when you're dealing with a specific crime. So I'd ask the court to dismiss the charge of attempted murder for my client. If the court is inclined to bind him on felonious assault.
Thank you. I think Mr. Small, Mr. Carter have done a good job of outlining this accessory and aiding and abetting difference as it relates to Mr. Dinwiddie Moore is important, because in Ms. Lacey's own argument for bind over for Mr. Dinwiddie Moore, she acknowledges the fact that he had no participation in this event that was occurring, no words of encouragement, anything like that, acting as an accessory or aiding in any way until, by her own words, is when I think it's kind of mixed character evident to an extent, but until after at some point that Mr. Cowie was taking control over the weapon, right? And then that's when Mr. Dinwiddie Moore interjected himself, according to her own theory of the case, to bind over on him as enabling event. If anything, I think that's, if anything, I say it's an accessory after the fact as a separate offense, not for the assault with intent to murder itself. Because at that point, the time when Ms. Lacey concedes, the first time Mr. Dinwiddie Moore actually supposedly did anything in furtherance of a crime, all the shots had been fired. He provided no encouragement before then. He made no physical actions whatsoever at that point. There's nothing to suggest he was participating in this crime in any way other than mere presence. So without that, Your Honor, you can't say he was giving encouragement or assistance with the intention of helping another commit that crime. That crime being the assault with intent to murder. So did you, Your Honor, look at this video and see that Mr. Dinwiddie Moore, by his actions of reaching down and grabbing and pulling away, screaming, "Let it go," and then throwing a couple punches, and then once we see the clip pulled out off the ground, then he picks it up and then he's no longer involved? Does that suggest he's encouraging an assault with intent to murder? No. If anything, it's accessory.
You asking me and then answering?
It's
for me?
rhetorical, Your Honor, but absolutely.
You said, "Did you, Your Honor?"
Well, Your Honor, I hope you agree with me that it's clearly rhetorical, and I can't fathom how Miss Lacy would actually be able to say the statement that she can't see it any other way. But nothing. There was no physical altercation by Mr. Dinwiddie Moore until that point, which you saw him reaching down and pulling. His first actions was not punching, it was not kicking, it was not striking. He's pulling, he screams, "Let it go." The inferences is that we're talking about this gun and we're trying to get a gun out of the equation. Not intending to murder Mr. Cowie.
You want me to speculate that?
Your Honor, I don't.
We don't have any evidence of that.
Wow. I think. Well,
You want me to speculate that he was trying to get the gun out of the equation.
I'm
I
asking
don't
the
know
court
that.
to make findings as is required for a probable cause standard of a person of reasonable and ordinary prudence exercising caution. Did that video show that he did anything to encourage or assist the crime of attempting to assault with intent to murder? And I think it clearly does not. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Abbott?
Thank you. It's clearly a felonious assault. Comes around the corner of the back of that car and points a gun right at his head. He had the opportunity to kill him right there. That loaded gun in his hand. He actually had the specific intent to kill him. All he had to do was flex his finger. That would have been it. That would have been a murder right there. He actually had the intent to murder. As everyone has mentioned, he started, I think what was going on actually was a demonstration of bravado and force and setting an example for his nephews and his son and being the tough guy and the enforcer. But there was actually no intention on his part to shoot him, even though he was capable of doing it. He didn't do it. And I think the absence of any action that actually could have killed him means that there wasn't any evidence of an intent to commit murder. On both occasions where, first at the beginning where he pointed at his head, and then as Mr. Crowley was going back into his home, he did track him with the gun as he was found, but he never fired the gun. So, whether it was loaded or not, I don't know, but he never fired the gun. Without firing the gun, without doing something that could have actually killed him. If there's any intent. Thank you.
Okay, today was a date that was set for a preliminary examination. At the time of preliminary examination, the burden is on the prosecution to establish probable cause. They have to establish that there's probable cause sufficient, that a crime was committed, and sufficient probable cause to charge you as a defendant who committed the crime. The burden is flexible, but it's based on information that is brought forth today at today's hearing. It's a burden that requires not as much evidence as what would be met if this matter was to be bound over for trial. At trial, the burden is then on them to prove each element beyond a reasonable doubt. Now what we need is more than mere suspicion. The judge is the sole determiner of credibility at the examination stage, and in determining credibility, I can believe all or some of what the witness has testified to. And so we have here today an incident that allegedly occurred on December 29, 2021 at the area of 317 Denver Street, which is in the city of Lansing, Ingham County, state of Michigan. And that makes venue before this court appropriate. We had testimony from one witness, a Yusuf Cowie, and he testified that on that date and time, he reviewed or read some exchange messages or something through his daughter that upset him. And so because of that, he said that he believed those messages to come from his neighbor, who he identified as defendant Anthony, that he knocked on Anthony's door. There was no answer. He testified minutes later that both the individuals he identified as Anthony and Alex came to his house. There were some words that were exchanged during that time. He testified that Anthony threatened to beat his ass, is what he said, and Anthony said he would call his uncle. Unclear to the court what the call to the uncle means, but the victim interpreted that to mean that the defendant Anthony was calling his uncle to come and address Mr. Cowie in some shape or form. Then you see on the video, I think the one that was marked as 317 Denver Street 4. That was the one that is 317 Denver Street 5. The second video, you see where the victim is outside of his property. Again, there's some words exchanged to the extent of getting back in the house, and the victim is blaring out expletives in response. At the same time, you see a gold Cadillac crossover SUV style vehicle pull up, and an individual in the vehicle addresses Mr. Cowie as he's approaching. I think the response he states as he's approaching is, "No, but I did say something to your nephew," or something to that effect. Nonetheless, he repeats what he said to the nephew, which was "fuck your uncle," and the person he believes to be the uncle, which is later identified as Dalton Moore, exits the vehicle with a firearm in his hand pointed at Mr. Cowie. The argument of Mr. Dalton's attorney is that he had the ability then to shoot, but he didn't. The video shows that Mr. Dalton is pointing pointing the firearm at Mr. Cowie, and within seconds, Mr. Cowie lunges forward and grabs a hold of the defendant Dalton's wrist or hand in an attempt to try to disengage the firearm or disarm him. There's a struggle that ensues after that, and they're on the floor. You see at that point, Mr. Dunwoody Moore, or that person identified as Mr. Dunwoody Moore, approaches, as well as Mr. Defendant Anthony approached, and they engage in the altercation. I think the video shows the person with the gold or yellow colored hoodie style sweatshirt, which I believe was the person identified as Anthony, had his arms around Mr. Cowie's neck in an attempt to try to pull him off the defendant Dalton Moore. They all end up on the ground at some point. Well, the defendant and Dalton Moore and Mr. Cowie end up on the ground. You can see Mr. Dunwoody Moore striking the victim of various times while blaring out some statements. And then you can see Mr. Anderson also take a couple of strikes. You can see in the video Mr. Church is standing off for the most part. At one point, he is in fighting stance, but he is at a distance for the majority of this altercation until there was one point where he goes and he engages with a couple of strikes before the firearms, I think again, is discharged, and then he is no longer seen in any of the frames of either the pictures or the video. Um, you can see where it appears that Mr. Cowie had removed the clip from the firearm. Something black was on the floor or on the ground. And you can see where Mr. Dunwoody Moore, that is, picks up what we believe to be the black, the clip to the firearm. Mr. Cowie is racing into the house, at which point Mr. Moore, Dalton Moore, is pointing the firearm directly at Mr. Cowie. And then Mr. Dalton Moore is seen seen pulling the trigger with nothing. No shot is fired because the clip, as we had seen via the video, had already been removed. Mr. Dunwoody Moore is seen giving the clip back to his father, Mr. Dalton Moore. And there you see some shots being fired from the house as the individuals are retreating. The criminal jury instruction for assault with intent to murder, which each individual have been charged here today, states the defendant is charged with crime of assault with intent to murder. To prove this charge, the prosecutor must prove each of the following elements beyond a reasonable doubt. First, that the defendant tried to physically injure another person. Second, that when the defendant committed the assault, he had the ability to cause an injury or at least believed that he had the ability. Third, that the defendant intended to kill the person that he assaulted and the circumstances did not legally excuse or reduce the crime. As it relates to Mr. Dalton Moore, he arrives to the scene of the incident and after a brief moment of words exchange, he jumps off the vehicle with a firearm extended and pointed at the head of Mr. Cowie. I think each of the defense's counsels have pointed out in some way or the other that he had the ability to shoot at that time, but he didn't. From my vantage point, there seemed to be within seconds of him pulling the firearm, Mr. Cowie grabs hold of his arm. And it's possible he could have shot before then, or I don't know, maybe it wasn't possible. But what is interesting that nobody addresses the fact that there was a second time that he is pointing this firearm at Mr. Cowie. And his belief at the time is that he has the ability to shoot. He did not know that Mr. Moore did not know the firearm had been disengaged. And so based on that, and that's evident because he pulls the trigger and his son then shows him that I have the clip and gives him the clip. So there's also what should be addressed is as Mr. Moore is discussing, Mr. Dalton Moore is in the car still discussing the incident or the words that were exchanged with Mr. Cowie. You can hear someone shouting out something to the effect of not F that, shoot that motherfucker. Mr. Cowie believed that to be the voice of Mr. Anderson. He did testify that he was familiar with Mr. Anderson. He believed that to be Mr. Anderson. I couldn't see either of them in the frame when that statement was made, but I could clearly hear the statement as the individuals were running what appeared to be running back because Mr. Church, I think, ran up on the scene at the same time that statement was being made. So as to assault with intent to murder, there's an altercation, there's shots that are fired during that altercation, and then there's an attempt to try to shoot and not to retreat as Mr. Cowie was retreating. There was an attempt to try to shoot him. I'm going to find that there's sufficient probable cause as to or against Mr. Dalton Moore for count one, assault with intent to murder. That will be bound over to the circuit court. There is a count two of weapons carrying concealed. And that the defendant, Dalton Moore, carried a concealed weapon in the Cadillac SRX. I think that's evident by the video here. Count two would be bound over to the circuit court, as well as count three, weapons, dangerous weapon carrying with unlawful intent. The prosecution is requesting to add a count four of felon in possession. That's admitted People's Exhibit 11 of a judgment of sentence, a certified judgment of sentence, signed by Judge Joyce Dragonchuck on July 2nd, 2008. And so the request to add a count four of felon in possession will be granted, and that will be bound over to the circuit court. As to Mr. Dunwoody Moore. Moore's attorney, Mr. Mario Moore's attorney, is arguing that his client did not take any action to encourage or aid in any attempt to assault with intent to murder. I would differ or disagree, I should say, with that. I think the video is clear that Mr. Dunwoody Moore was striking Mr. Crowley multiple times whilst yelling, "Let go of it, you bitch ass." Based on the circumstances of the incident, it is unreasonable for me to believe that he was trying to get the firearm so that he can bring it to safety and disarm. And so it goes against any logical reasoning. And so I believe he acted in concert with Mr. Dalton Moore in an attempt to try to help in carrying out the action when the firearm was when Mr. Dalton Moore was not able to free his hand in order to fire the firearm. Mr. Dunwoody Moore immediately assisted and assaulting Mr. Crowley in an attempt to try to get the firearm away. There was also testimony that there was a statement made as to go get the other firearm. I didn't hear that statement on the video. I don't know if that was something that could not be picked up over the audio because of all the commotion. I just could not make that out. But that is this testimony that the victim has made under oath. I find that testimony to be credible. We don't know which one of the defendants made that statement. But if I look at the totality of the circumstances, which is where we have two people pull up the rapid speed in front of Mr. Crowley's house, one individual, Mr. Dalton Moore, jumps off the car with the firearm, and when he's unable or when the victim then apprehends or takes control or semi-control of the firearm, and the other person, that being Mr. Dunwoody Moore, comes in to try to assist to free the firearm. It's evident to me that it's not to try to make a peaceful retreat. It's also evident in the second portion where Mr. Moore, Dalton Moore, is pointing the firearm at Mr. Crowley as he's trying to race into the house. That when Mr. Dalton Moore tries to shoot and there's no clip, that Mr. Dunwoody Moore is assisting by handling the clip so he can put it back in there to try to shoot. And you can see on the video, Mr. Dalton Moore is actively putting the clip back into the firearm while still standing in front of Mr. Crowley's house when the first first bullet from the home is fired through the window or door. So as to Mr. Dunwoody Moore, count one of assault with intent to murder, the court finds that there's sufficient probable cause. That will be bound over to the circuit court. as to Mr. Anthony Anderson, the individual with the court scene hanging off of Mr. Farley's, in the video, hanging off of his neck, trying to pull him off of Mr. Dalton Moore, trying to assist Mr. Dalton Moore in being free so that he can use the firearm. It's what it appears to me. He's also the one that Mr. Qualley testified made the statement, not F that, shoot that mother effer. So the court is satisfied that under the theory of aiding and abetting, that Mr. Anderson was not just there looking, but that he took specific action to assist in furthering the assault with intent to murder. That will be bound over to the circuit court for further prosecution. Mr. Church, I will say that watching the video, he does seem to be, based on that video evidence, the least engaged in the incident. He's multiple frames of the video standing off into the background. There was testimony from Mr. Qualley that Mr. Church, he did not hear Mr. Church make any threats towards him, and that he did not at any time have a firearm, or he doesn't believe that he went to go and grab an additional firearm, but that he retreated after some shots were fired. But under the theory of aiding and abetting, what we have here is a question as to whether or not there's probable cause to believe that he took any action to encourage or assist in executing the crime of assault with intent to murder, and where the probable cause against Mr. Church comes into play is when he moves forward and starts to engage by hitting or striking Mr. Qualley multiple times, at which point all four people are assaulting Mr. Qualley while he's on the ground to try to get the firearm or get his hands off of the firearm, because that's what's being stated, let go of the firearm so that Mr. Dalton Moore can have control of it again. I believe that he assisted and he acted in concert with the other individuals, and so he was bound over as well as and the charge of assault with intent to murder. And as to a bind over date, your bind over date is going to be June 15th. You do not need to appear in court on June 15th. That's the date that the circuit court will get the file from this court. Your next court date in circuit court will be a pretrial. You will not have an arraignment in circuit court unless your attorneys make a motion before the court providing some reason why you need to have an arraignment in circuit court. Are there any questions?
No. No, Your Honor.
Mr. Dalton Moore, do you have any questions?
Yeah, actually, I just want to know why the rest of the video wasn't shown. That was not the end of that video.
Well, the prosecution didn't present that. Your defense and then the other defense counsels did not choose to put on any evidence today. But this is a probable cause conference. This is a probable cause standard. This is not a trial. And so there may be a reason why they didn't put forth any evidence today,
Okay.
which is typical.
Okay, I was just
So
wondering because I ain't never been
you can
through all this.
discuss your further defense or any options for motions at the circuit court with your attorney, but the defense
Definitely.
did not put any proofs today, and that's pretty typical for an exam.
Okay, I was just wondering. This is all new to me.
Okay. Any additional questions?
Not a question. I just would like to say thank you.
You're welcome.
Because of our first-
And I do apologize for not being able to be there today. I was advised against medical because I don't live in Lansing anymore. They advised me not to travel until after I had my test. I will be having a test today or tomorrow. It was scheduled for 11 o'clock today, but we ran later, and I should have known we were going to.
You don't live in Lansing. Where do you live?
in Walkerville, Michigan. My attorney has my updated information, and I'm gonna call pretrial
Well,
services
the
to
court
update
has to
anything.
have your updated information.
Yeah, I'm finna call pretrial services as soon as we get off the phone.
Nope, you're gonna give it to me right now. Where's your address?
99 East, I'm sorry, S East Street,